I call this meeting of Montgomery County School Board to order. It's 7:30, April 15th, 2014. My name is Joe Ivers, and I will serve as board chair for this evening until Wendell Jones arrives. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending the meeting tonight. We have an agenda before you. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in, is there any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we move the budget discussion to the very end in hopes that Wendell Jones might be here for that part of our meeting.
That doesn't require a motion, Ms. Woolsey. That's already been handled before the board members arrived tonight.
Okay.
I didn't hear you.
That doesn't require a motion. The change was made before everyone arrived this evening.
Oh, didn't know that. Okay.
So we're okay discussing that now?
He said that
We don't need a motion. It's already happened. We've already changed it.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. And for some reason, I've lost the, I'll get back to that. I'll get my, anyway, okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor in adopting the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Our first item, I'll call Dr. Lois Graham to assist us with honors, awards, and recognitions.
At this time, we're very pleased to share our honors, awards, and recognitions for the night. I would ask Jennifer Weaver, Director of Secondary Education, to come forward and share our first awards.
Good evening. As you can see, we have a room full of state champions tonight. I'm honored that we have so many athletes to recognize this evening. Shane Gwynn from Christiansburg High School is here to introduce all of our teams and coaches. So Mr. Gwynn, please come forward.
Good evening, board. I want to thank you guys and ladies for having us here tonight and to recognize these fine athletes. The first coach I would like to recognize this evening, it's actually really neat to be here because he's actually my predecessor in the programs that I used to coach at Christiansburg High School. And in his first year, in juggling all three sports, he managed to win a state title in indoor track and field state championship, which is outstanding. He came in, he took a hold of the reins, he's done a phenomenal job. He had numerous all-state athletes and 3 state champions, and they accomplished a lot of other really interesting things during that state meet, but I want to let him go over that a little bit more in detail. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Sean Bossman as our head cross-country indoor and outdoor track and field coach at Christiansburg High School.
Thank you, Shane. First of all, on behalf of my staff, my athletes, we'd like to thank the board for inviting us to this meeting tonight. Like Shane said, I'm very humbled to be able to coach a bunch of great group of athletes like them. First of all, I'd like to introduce my 3 state champions, if you would please stand. State champion in the 55 hurdles, Mackenzie Muldoon.
They need to come to the front. They need to come up.
Come on up. State champion in the high jump, Kendall Smith. And our last individual state champion, Jordan Fenton in the shot put.
Is the rest of the team here?
Yeah, the rest of the team is here. Our boys team was state champion overall, beating Blacksburg by 2.5 points. So, rest of you, please join us.
There's a certificate for all of you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You did a great job. Now, next year, you're going to knock off Blacksburg indoor and outdoor.
That's the plan. We still got another season left. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Very proud.
Yeah, introduce so we know who they are.
This is Ashton King.
What event?
Huh?
What event?
The long jump, high jump. Mitchell Walters, alternate 4x1. CJ Napper, all-state in the shot put. Andrew McPhee, all-state in the shot put. Mike Formica, alternate 4x8. Aaron Lowe, 1600. Tanner Reed, 4x4, 300. Josh Moore, triple jump, high jump. Ethan Hodges, 4x8, and Brian Carroll, 4x8. One other thing, like Shane talked about, I wanted to mention that it's very rare that you sweep 1, 2, 3 by a school, but we did it twice in 2 events, in the shot put, in the high jump. That really helped us in our team score. And those 3 in the high jump, it went Dee Smith, Mackenzie Muldoon, Josh Moore got 3rd, and then in the shot put, it went Jordan Fitton, CJ Napper, and Andrew McPhee. But all these guys that competed that weekend, Friday and Saturday, scored, so everybody contributed to our team score, and it took a team effort to beat a strong team like Blacksburg. And I'm just very happy, and I'm happy that my staff that I had this year, but it really was an honor of me to take over what Coach Gwynn has built this program over the 12 years, and I just hope to continue it and hopefully continue to keep the success in this program. But we thank you guys for having us tonight, so thank you so much.
The next coach we would like to recognize tonight is Miss Amy Brell. Most recently, she had 3 individuals garner all Timesland honors. She does a phenomenal job of orchestrating the VHSL state championships. She is the director of that meet, and she hosts at the Christiansburg Aquatic Center, and this has been the 4th consecutive year she's done that. So along with her teaching duties, she also manages to run a state meet where hundreds of athletes and parents and spectators are coming in, which is just something outstanding. She can juggle many things at once. And most recently, she was nominated by the VHSL for the National Federation High School Coach of the Year in the nation. So we also have another coach who's garnered that honor in a different sport tonight, but we'll talk about him here in a few minutes. So Miss Amy Brell, could you please come up?
I would also like to thank you for taking time out of the evening tonight to recognize all these wonderful student athletes. I think we have a lot to be proud of. If Ronnie Pimani could come on up. Once again, I am so honored to present Ronnie to you. This is his 3rd time in front of you. He is a junior and once again, undefeated this season and competed at the state meet, winning the 1-meter diving competition and setting the new 2A classification state record. So we are very proud of Ronnie and all of his accomplishments.
And last but not least, we have Mr. Daryl Weber. This season was a very special season, not only for Daryl and his athletes, but also for Christiansburg High School. They had a record going of a lot of state championships in a row, and their goal was, sort of behind the scenes, was to break the VHSL record this year. It wasn't something they put out in front of everybody. Everybody sort of talked about it behind the scenes, but they knew what they were trying to do, and they knew the pressure was on. When the state championships got there, they went through some adversity. They got second in the region championships. a lot of pressure on their back, but they came to the state championships and pulled out the win. That was 13 consecutive state titles by Christiansburg High School wrestling. That is a phenomenal feat, but it also breaks, go ahead. It also breaks the Virginia High School League record for consecutive state titles in wrestling. So we've secured ourselves in the record books of the VHSL as well. So Daryl was also the other coach that was nominated by the Virginia High School League for the NFHS National Coach of the Year in wrestling. So I'm going to let him come up and tell you all a little bit more about his season and his athletes. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having all these athletes. This is quite impressive. So is what a great job Coach Gwynn's doing at the school. I want to bring up my assistant coach Sonny Close and the state qualifiers. Y'all come up here. Yeah, we knew we were going for the record this year, and the previous year we graduated 3 4-time state champions, 7 seniors off the team. We lost a lot of people after we won our 12th title, and we had a really young group. We took 6 freshmen to the state tournament. So these guys really showed a lot of resilience and dedication, determination throughout the year. The teams that took 2nd, 3rd, and 5th all beat us throughout the year, and we put it all together at the end of the year and just showed what mental. We talk a lot about mental toughness, but it showed what the mental toughness they developed throughout the year. And we got Coy Ozias right here. He's a 4-time state champion. He's a senior going to Princeton University next year. David Giantonio, junior state champion. Hunter Boland, freshman, he took 6th. He was the hands-down favorite at the state tournament and broke his wrist in the state semifinals. Had beaten the young man that ended up winning it. So, you could keep your eye on that guy in the future. Creed Lump, sophomore, took 2nd in the state. Gage Levine, 5th as a freshman. Josh Linkus, also 5th as a freshman. And Dorian Giantonio, 3rd place junior. And then our program also had 2 Division I All-Americans at Virginia Tech this year, Devin Carter and Joey Dance. They placed at the national tournament for Virginia Tech, which is a pretty big deal for them. So. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Yeah, thank you.
At this time, if Mrs. Weaver will come back, we will introduce our seniors of the month.
We have a few more outstanding students to share with you this evening. I hope everyone will have an opportunity to view their profiles out in the lobby. They really have some wonderful accomplishments. This evening we have 3 of our seniors of the month with us. I'd like to begin with Blacksburg High School. Mr. Brian Kitts is here to introduce them.
Good evening. The Blacksburg High School Science Department has selected Claire Ewing Nelson as our Senior of the Month for her excellence in and out of the classroom. Claire is accompanied this evening by her parents Tom Ewing and Amy Nelson. Would you all please come forward and be recognized? Claire is ranked at the top of her class and manages the most demanding coursework that Blacksburg High School offers. Her athletic accomplishments are equally impressive. She has won numerous track events and recently was part of a relay team that placed first in the nation. She is a model to other students because of her talent, determination, and work ethic, but also for her compassion and her positive nature. Next fall, Claire will be headed to Yale. Congratulations, Claire, on being Blacksburg High School Senior of the Month.
Good evening, Dr. Graham and members of the board. It is with great pride that I introduce to you Christiansburg High School's April Senior of the Month, Mackenzie Thomas Muldoon. He is accompanied this evening by his parents, Sean and Janelle Muldoon, and his sister, Madeline. Will you please come forward at this time to be recognized? Mac was selected for this honor based on the overall scope of his contributions to Christiansburg High School. His academic and athletic credentials are too long to list in the time available, as are the numerous comments of praise provided by his teachers and coaches when asked to make a statement or two about his selection. So instead of reading excerpts from these statements, I have decided to condense them into a list of descriptive terms that these individuals made about Mac. He's great, excellent, refuses to give up, leader, team player, intelligent, an athlete that all coaches wish to coach, efficient, assertive, humble, great, good, impressive, bright, dependable, great, caring, hopeful, helpful, positive attitude, inspiring, well-balanced, great, nice, the best all-around student that I've taught in 34 years of teaching. He needs to work on his dance moves, and he's great. We have hundreds of outstanding students, athletes, and citizens at Christiansburg High School. Mac Muldoon has set the bar by which they are all measured, and we are proud to have him as our Senior of the Month.
Thanks, Dr. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Graham, Dr. State, and members of the board, it's with great pride that I introduce to you, I've got it. Thank you. It's with great pride that I introduce to you tonight Eastern Montgomery High School's April Senior of the Month, Coy Shane DeWeese. He's accompanied tonight by his parents, John and Lisa DeWeese, and his girlfriend, Marilyn, if they would come forward. EMHS marketing teacher Janet Jennings had this to say about our April Senior of the Month. Shane is a great kid, and she asked me to do this. He knows how to have fun and enjoy school while still being successful in the everyday tasks he has to accomplish. He is determined and dedicated to excellence in the classroom and on the playing field. Being the marketing teacher, I have the pleasure of teaching many children multiple times over their high school careers. Shane has been a delight to teach. It's been awesome to watch him grow from that freshman stress to the senior success that he has become. Academically, he strives to do it all. His grades are excellent. His work ethic is outstanding. His input and participation in class is always focused. Good luck next year as you attend Carson Newman and play football. Congratulations, Shane.
At this time, Dr. Patricia Goodrow will share with us the Virginia School Board Association's Green School Recognition Award.
Good evening, members of the board. It's my pleasure to highlight for you an award that we've received from the Virginia School Boards Association for Montgomery County Schools being a certified green school division. We were awarded this recognition by filling out a lengthy application at the division level and providing evidence to the School Board Association for our claims. And some of our biggest highlights under the categories that were given to us was the air quality management plan that our facilities department offers and the energy savings program that they put into place in all of our buildings. But we also owe thanks to the students and staff at each of our schools for the efforts they've made to recycle, to compost, and to utilize the outdoor classroom as it promotes the environment. So I think at this time, Dr. Staten, would you receive this award?
We will take a 5-minute break so that all the board members and the audience may congratulate those who received honors tonight. Thank you.
The school board sets aside 30 minutes for citizens to address the board about issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. The screens throughout the room and on the laptop will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining, and then when the 3 minutes have passed. I have 5 people signed up, and we'll start with Roxanne Hartman. Please give your name and address also.
Good evening. My name is Roxana, R-O-X-A-N-A, Hartman, H-A-R-T-M-A-N-N, and I live in 404 Claremont Drive, Blacksburg. I am the parent of a son with autism. Mark is totally nonverbal. Nevertheless, he communicates with the keyboard. He graduated with an academic diploma from Blacksburg High School, making Mark the second student in the state of Virginia with nonverbal autism to graduate from high school with a regular academic diploma, and one of a handful of students in the United States. I also was a member of the FAT team for 12 years and the CMP team for another 12 years. Being on these two committees, I became aware of the complex abilities of lives of families in our county, many of which have long family histories of needs for their children. Right now, the special education department is at the crossroads seeking a new director for our school district. Along with many members of our community, I'm concerned that parents had not been included in the process of screening the applicants for the position. It is hard reality to see the current director leave because of her established record in making sure that children come first in her list of priority. My son is the perfect example. Unfortunately, in the 4 years that Ms. Blacksburg has been superintendent of the school system, she had never attended any of the meetings of the Special Education Advisory Committee, the SEAC. The SEAC has well had the Parent Resource Center at the places where parents voice concern about the issues that affect children. Inclusion happened to be in our district because parents were included in the process. We will not sit by the sidelines and pretend that we are not consumers of special education, that we are not taxpayers, and that we don't have a voice. How this matter is being handled is not accepted to parents. and I hope that the board will look into the process of finding a new director of special education to make sure that the rush to fill the position does not overcome the needs that we have. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dawn Wilson. Following Dawn will be Jenny Conrad.
Hi, my name is Dawn Wilson. I live at 2880 Millwood Lane in Blacksburg. With all the recent budget proposals floating around, a suggestion has been made to cut the math tutors from next year's budget. I'd like to clarify that the math tutors you're referring to are actually the elementary instructional specialists, and I want to put my face with this position you are talking about cutting. While math tutors are important, I am not one. What I am is an integral part of the success in my schools. There are 5 of us at the elementary level, and we touch 11 schools in the county. The work we do with teachers and staff will affect 4,500 elementary school students this year. There aren't many people in the county who can say that about their position. Here's some of the things that we do in a typical week. Attend and participate in grade level and data team meetings, compile and disaggregate SOL, benchmark, and other data, and share it with teachers and administrators to drive instruction and remediation. Oversee iStation computer reading program, extra math and reflex math groups, help plan and implement interventions for individual and small groups, plan with teachers for reading, writing, and math, write multiple choice and technology enhanced assessments using district pacing guides and benchmark assessment data, model lessons and co-teach in classrooms, help teachers with Standard 7 goals, and assist with Fountas and Pinnell, PALS, benchmark, and SOL testing. If we aren't there to provide the support for teachers and staff, they will be expected to do all of this work themselves, or it will be dropped from schools. We surveyed teachers in our elementary schools this past week, and here are a few things teachers and staff shared. The data and resources provided by our instructional specialists are great to ensure that students are receiving targeted instruction. The instructional specialist is not an outsider looking in. She's truly an integral part of our school who knows the students across all grade levels as well as their strengths and weaknesses. Our specialist analyzes data to help with testing. She makes charts and graphs to help teachers make instructional decisions. She focuses on all students from special education to gifted. My instructional specialist created multiple assessments to help target instruction and evaluate how students are doing. The instructional specialists are greatly needed and appreciated. I would not have the time to do all the things she does for myself and my students. This is just a sample of feedback we receive from current classroom teachers and staff about our roles in the schools. When you take a long, hard, detailed look at the budget, please think about what is best for students. Please keep the instructional specialists in Montgomery County Public Schools. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jenny Conrad, followed by Kimberly Ellis.
Hi, my name is Jenny Conrad, and I live at 380 Craigs Mountain Road, Christiansburg. I am an instructional specialist at Bellevue Elementary and Auburn Elementary. On a weekly basis, I have an opportunity to work with 296 students and 14 teachers at Bellevue, 540 students and 29 teachers at Auburn. There are 5 instructional specialists which cover 11 elementary schools in the county. Here are some things I was able to accomplish today. I arrived at work at 7:30 to work on data. At 8 o'clock, I had an SBIT meeting. From 8:30 to 9, I worked with students in the computer lab, followed by an hour of small group remediation, 30 minutes of small group modeling, an hour and a half of modeling a school-wide reading strategy for 3 classes of students and teachers, 45 minutes of demonstrating the use of the Smart Response systems, an hour of assessments, time prepping for tomorrow's data meetings, conducting interviews, and at least an hour of work on current benchmark data. This is just an example of one day of my schedule. On any given day, I spend my days fulfilling the role of instructional specialist by supporting students and teachers. During a recent data meeting and survey given to our teachers, we compiled these responses from teachers regarding our position. We need more people like you to make grouping students more effective. Our small groups are no longer small. Kids have changed and expectations have been raised. If I have a question or need help, she quickly provides me with the information I need. She explains the information clearly and demonstrates how to find it and use it. She constantly sends us helpful instructional activities to use with students. She has been the most helpful resource we have had. I rely on her expertise and resources and appreciate her willingness to model strategies for my students. Teaching at a new grade level, there are many programs and assessments to use, not to mention the data analysis that goes along with them. I would not have been able to use the data as well as I have without the help of our instructional specialist. I also would not have been able to manage small groups in reading and math if not for her help. The demands on classroom teachers grow daily, and the pressures mount to seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Without the role of instructional specialist, these pressures would continue to grow. My job would be impossible without the job of an instructional specialist. This position has made a huge impact on me since I began teaching. I am in a unique situation because I have always worked at a school that had an instructional specialist. And I can't imagine doing the job of a classroom teacher without this position in place. My instructional specialists, whom I have worked with as a coach and now a colleague, have made all the difference in helping shape me as a teacher. Please keep the position of instructional specialist in our schools.
Next speaker is Kimberly Ellis, followed by David Guy. No Kimberly Ellis? David Guy?
Good evening, Dr. Graham and board members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I am David Guy, Christiansburg resident, Montgomery County, 205 Wooden Shoe Court since '95. I'm here to express, very briefly, support for the review of the budget, line item by line item. I'm an electrical engineer and have been since 1974. Business has changed. It has changed tremendously and changes every day. We have a daughter who is a graduate of Montgomery County Schools and is a certified teacher. A son-in-law who is also a certified teacher in Virginia. But I'm here not only to talk about those who go to college, we certainly need those and need more of them. But in Montgomery County, as I see in our workplace, we have more employees who are not college graduates. They need math skills. They need English skills. They need computer skills. And they also pay taxes. Whoops. They pay taxes in Montgomery County. So I'm encouraging you, the board, to look at the resources already available with the skill sets to supplement the schools in areas to get students to the state level in math and English and to provide assistance for those who need help. Your teachers know the programs which produce successful students. I encourage you to go back to the teachers and focus on them. They will tell you which works year after year, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you so much.
Kimberly Ellis is not here. If there are any other speakers who wish to come up, please do so now.
Good evening. My name is Angie Cornett. I reside in Shawsville and I teach third grade at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, and tonight I'm speaking as an individual. I am here to speak also in favor of keeping all of the instructional specialists within our school board, within our programs, and within our budget. The other ladies have spoke eloquently tonight about the responsibilities and the day-to-day duties that these excellent teachers participate in. I would like to share a couple of other things. It is really nice to have that team approach when we have the instructional specialists in our school, because they not only work with the 11 other schools, they can share with each other what each school is doing and bring it back to our school at our grade level meeting. We learn from them. We have an extra pair of hands. They are a connection between our school and the curriculum office. Dr. Schultz is one person, and he's, as all supervisors are, spread very thin, and it's nice to be able to have that connection. They write a lot of the benchmark but questions, answers, Moodle documents, technology-enhanced items, all of the resources that help us keep up with the increased rigor that is in the SOLs. They do small group remediation, and it's not just that it helps teachers not have extra time, but we don't have enough time in the day to do all that we need to do, and an extra pair of hands is very helpful for that. Dr. Schultz developed and implemented a plan to improve student achievement from K through 12 using these teachers, and they're vital to our success. Preparing students for the 21st century requires stronger math skills. It's not enough to know anymore that 6 times 3 equals 18. They have to know how to draw it, how to write it out, how to use symbols for it. There's multiple ways to communicate how to solve math problems. And that's what we're being asked to do into the 21st century. My suggestion for cutting the budget in one particular area, I know this is not popular among a lot of people, and it's certainly not ideal, but I support pay to play for extracurricular activities. If a child were to be receiving free or reduced lunch, they could receive a waiver. And it's not, I understand the importance of the connection between extracurricular activities and academics, but we need to share the burden. Teachers have shouldered the burden of cuts and have sacrificed the most time, energy, and money over the last 7 years. I believe it's time for families to step up and pay their fair share. The school's primary responsibility is to keep an excellent academic program, and that should be our #1 focus, and I believe families can help us out with that. Please keep all of the instructional specialist positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board? Seeing no one, public address is closed. Consent items. If there is nothing to be pulled from the consent agenda, then we will consider the consent items approved. Is there any discussion regarding consent items? Okay. Personnel report. Do I have a motion to adopt the personnel report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the personnel report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Payment of the bills. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion in reference to paying the bills? All those in favor of paying the bills signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Financial summary report. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed. Superintendent's reports, recommendations, and announcements.
Okay, once again, good evening, board members, and I want you to know that I have 7 items to present on behalf of the superintendent tonight. One of these items you will hear directly from Ms. Blackburn herself. The first item, we will begin with a presentation or presenting information on the ongoing tablet pilot program at Auburn High School and Christiansburg High School. Jennifer Weaver and Harvey Goodwin will provide you with an update.
Good evening. I thought it was important, as we talked about the e-backpack pilot, to go back and remind you our instructional goals for this year. As I think we've all talked about, a tablet pilot or any means of technology is only important if it supports the instructional needs of the division. So I just wanted to remind you that this year at the high school level, our focus is on engaging students, finding ways to motivate and engage them with the curriculum so that they can truly achieve success. We're also looking for ways to maximize instructional time, making sure that we're using research-based instructional effective strategies. So I wanted to remind you of that so that you can use it as a filter as you hear about how the pilot went, to see the pictures and the videos that you're going to see of classrooms, to see if those look like engaging classrooms, where we're maximizing instructional time and using effective strategies.
I'm just going to take a moment to sort of recap how we got here. This process began last summer when the state rolled out the e-backpack initiative, and a group of us went to a state meeting where we were informed and met with vendors. When we came back to the county, we formed a committee of parents and teachers and administrators as well as technology staff to begin to look at the whole process and also to narrow down the field, because you're talking about quite a number of different devices that could qualify. Once we had our committee together, we went through vendor demos of many of the major manufacturers and different software operating systems, and narrowed the field down to, the committee narrowed them down to two basic platforms, the Windows 8 tablet and the Apple to evaluate. Now, from my perspective at that point, in my group, we're really looking at the logistics and trying to solve what is the best device for use with Montgomery County from a technical angle. If you look at the lines there, the Windows 8 tablet was clearly more cost effective, and this was information we really didn't know back in January when we met with you. Another item that we had to consider was the mobile device management, which was a fairly costly piece. For this pilot, we used freeware, which is currently free. I hear that it's likely to become costly sometime in the future, but at this moment it was free, so that enabled us to use it as part of the pilot. We then did a software evaluation where the supervisors worked with Julie Kraft and identified all the various resources, textbooks online, applications that we used in the county instructionally. When we evaluated that, it ran almost all that applications ran natively on the Windows 8 tablet. The Apple and the iOS, not so much. Some of the applications didn't run because you had to use Flash or the app hadn't been built. So the Windows 8 tablet performed a little better in that area. At that point, we began to work on deploying the devices, where my technicians and ITRTs worked with the devices to get them built and ready to go out to teachers, did professional development with teachers to make sure the teachers knew how to use them effectively. Turned out that both devices were a little labor intensive. Took a little bit of work to get to that point. A lot of things were learned as we went along. A lot of new tricks revealed themselves. And we developed 2 classrooms at each school, one for Algebra 1 and one for Earth Science in each school, and equipped them with those devices. So they were basically paired levels, and the devices, the Windows tablets went to CHS and the Apples went to Auburn High School. Our conclusion is that the Windows 8 tablet pretty much outperforms the Apple in the areas of software. Hardware, we had far less hands-on having to go back and reconfigure devices. The Windows 8 tablet at CHS held up and took a lot less intervention. The MDM, Mobile Device Manager, Apple actually was a plus on that side. It was easier, and the MDM was able to manage the Apple's tablets better than it was the Windows. And pretty much that was the logistic report. So at this point, our conclusion would be, at least at the high school level, that we recommend the Windows 8 tablet as being a better device for Montgomery County Public Schools instruction from a cost-effective and instructional.
Good evening. I'm Tim Bainham. I'm assistant principal at Auburn High School, and I helped design the study that we did this winter. Or actually, we're right in the middle of it. We've done some preliminary things, but we have not finished it. But I want to tell you our thinking about it as we put it together. When you put together a field study or something like that, the first thing you need to do is figure out what we already know. There is all kinds of research that have already been done on putting technology in the hands of students in the classrooms. One's on tablets, one's on personal computers, and there's even some on laptops. But in this case, there's a lot of exciting research, a lot of exciting data that has already known to us about what happens when you put technology into the hands of kids in school. And some of them are really exciting. Example would be it improves problem-solving skills, homework completion, personal sense of productivity. It improves attendance. It decreases discipline. And this one is really interesting. It improves attitudes toward learning, their self-concept and self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is basically your feeling about yourself and your ability to do things. Second to socioeconomics, self-efficacy is the #1 predictor of student achievement. And we are really putting into the hands of kids the belief, the internal belief that they can do things, that they can operate, that they can compete, that they believe in their sense of learning. And to me, that is a really interesting part of research that's going on in education today. Obviously, it increases technology skills. It increases perceived personal productivity. It increases positive interactions. It increases a sense of independence among students. And research also indicates that the integration of any technology needs to be coupled with ongoing embedded technical support. Okay, that's one of the things. So with this, we already know that technology has tangible benefits and intangible benefits. So once we knew that, we decided, what do we want to measure? How are we going to measure this for you guys? And we have currently done some things, but again, we're in the middle of the study, and I think that the findings are not extremely valid, but I think that we can find some trends that have been developing. What we wanted to know about students was about their self-concept and self-efficacy. Does it change after we give them the treatment, after we give them these tablets? So what we did is that we developed a survey, which they'll take before and after that they receive these things. Their attitudes toward learning, again, will be noted through the survey. Achievement, we decided that all the students involved, we're going to look at their SOL grades, or scores. We're going to look at their tests and quizzes, grades, homework completion. We're also going to look at feedback from teachers. Communication and opinions about learning will be done through surveys. We're also going to look at attendance and the discipline of all these students. And the teachers involved, the teachers wanted to know whether or not their time management would be increased, if participation in students would be increased, and whether or not the variety and ability of instructional methods that they would be able to employ in the classroom would be increased. We've done preliminary interviews with students and with teachers, and we still have the survey to complete, and we want to see how their achievement comes out. But there are some trends that definitely, I think, are interesting to look at. Now we're on you.
Can I ask a question first before you indicated that the research, where did this research come from? Was this internal, or was it nationwide?
I did a literature review online, and if you look, there are the bibliographies on here. I have some cited sources. Yeah, okay. There's tons of research on this. This is lots of stuff.
And secondly, you indicated that it increased positive interaction
among peers.
Okay, and now explain that a little bit.
That would be that in the classroom, that having tablets allows for collaborative work, allows for students to work in partners and in groups and together in what students believe is a positive way. More so than it would be working independently or working on your own. It creates a collaborative environment in the classroom.
In your studies, did you find that there was a good deal of that?
That's what she's just about to show you.
Okay.
Good.
All right, so Tim was just sharing with you the things that we know from research and the items that we were hoping to find out. And I'm going to share with you what we are really learning. We're learning a lot from this tablet pilot. We're finding out that when provided with new resources, most teachers will change the way they plan and the way they teach students. And in this case, the additional resource is a tablet that is identical across the classroom, personalized for each student. The students have access to web-based resources that's instantaneous. We're finding that the kids are using those resources, and teachers are expecting the kids to use those resources. We're finding that students and teachers are communicating with the devices, and they're using them for organization, especially with the calendars. And I know one of the big questions is about internet access at home. We're finding that kids don't need internet access at home to use the devices for homework. And a lot of kids that have internet access at home, they're not even really using it. So overall, we're finding that teachers and students are having a positive experience. More engaging lessons are occurring, and students are using the tablets appropriately, and they're coming to class prepared with them. It's very impressive. So we've prepared a video for you to watch so that you can get kind of an inside look at what's going on in the classrooms.
Students that have exactly the same tablet allow me more mobility to drop a document to them or to get a standard sense of what everybody has at home technology-wise.
Well, the teachers can email you if you like miss a couple days and you're on Wi-Fi, they can email you your makeup work, and then you can stay caught up in school without having to turn in all the papers whenever you return, because you can just email them to her over the internet.
I feel more engaged in class when I have my tablet in front of me, because I feel like it makes things a lot easier and a lot less stressful if I have everything I need right in front of me, which I do with my tablet. I always take this home, so if I'm unsure when something's due, I always have it on my calendar, so I pretty much have no questions.
And it also helps a lot because in other classes like history, when he has an assignment for us to do, I can get on there and look up the map instead of having to pull out my book and look in my book. I can just get on Google and find a map, and then he lets me use that instead, and it's easier. It helps a lot.
I really enjoy using the tablet in science class because it makes the assignments easier. Instead of having to write out notes and try and keep up and wasting a whole bunch of class time, they're already uploaded, and then you can just follow along.
Well, we get on iExcel during class and do the different modules on there, and it makes things easier because then you don't got to go and get the laptops and the laptop cart enrolled in there.
I take pictures of all of my notes and keep them in individual folders for subject, and then I have them for every class, and it's easier to take my notes home and study.
A flipped classroom is a unique opportunity where a teacher essentially creates videos where students take notes at home. In my class in particular, we do a lot of foldables, and this would allow my students to create foldables at home that go over examples as almost like a preview to the next day's class period. The next day in class, then, we can talk about the notes and then go straight into application problems, and they allow us to get further into the material and dig a little bit deeper.
Ms. Gergen will put on her drive instructions for each station, and she will pretty much give us a whole lesson just on the tablet on a video, and then we'll know how to completely do the lesson.
I've actually heard about the flipped classroom last year or even the year before, but we weren't able to use it in our classroom because I didn't have a standard-based technology system for all of our students. So when they went home, they didn't have anything at home, some of them. And so it's very essential that students have access to technology in order to flip their classroom. Creates a more engaging experience once they get back the next day.
The project that I just did in Ms. Rust's class was a project about erosion, and we had to make a video, and we each got like a certain part of erosion, whether it was an avalanche or a landslide, and I got the lahar. And it was different using the tablet because instead of having to write it down and then doing it in front of the class, we could do it on a video and then we could upload it. I've been saving projects and assignments to the Google Drive by, of course, logging on to Google, clicking on to Google Drive, and then uploading it to Ms. Rust's folder that she gave us each.
My students are extremely excited about this tablet pilot, and in fact, they're so excited they're bringing it every single day. I'm keeping track of how many students are forgetting their iPad on a daily basis, and it's not very many. When you think about how many kids can't remember to bring a pencil to class, and those same kids are bringing their iPads every single day. They're totally excited about it and they love it.
I'm actually a lot less lost when I have my tablet in front of me.
I'd rather use the tablet during class time because if you have to go to a computer lab, it just takes away more class time, and it's just harder that way. Whereas the tablet, you already have it, and you can do your work, and you can save it easier, and it's kind of like your own personal computer.
It's a lot easier for studying for tests. I can take pictures of anything, and I have all of it right here.
The teachers who have helped us with the pilot are Jill Marbley and Allison Goforth at Auburn High School, Erin Rust and Amy Price at Christiansburg High School, and our two ITRTs, Bert Milburn and Lynn Yates, are here with us tonight, who've worked really hard on this project. Stand up, Bert and Jill. And Bert and Lynn. Do you have any questions for us?
Any questions, board members? I have one comment. That's pretty powerful video.
They're great kids. Yeah. And that's typical of the students that we're working with right now. They're just all really good kids.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide to do Algebra 1 and Earth Science? Was there?
When we developed our committee to try to select a device when we learned about the e-learning backpack initiative, Jill Marbley was the representative from Auburn High School, and she is an Algebra 1 teacher. And Erin Rust was the representative from Christiansburg High School, and she's an earth science teacher. So we tried to make parallel pilots at both schools, so we pulled in an additional Algebra 1 teacher from CHS and the other earth science teacher from Auburn High School, so that we would have similar populations and similar experiences, hopefully.
When you said that at home they really don't need internet access, how were they accessing textbooks, or were they not? Were they just uploading, teachers uploading pages to textbooks on those drives, or like?
Since the weather has been so poor, we've had a really hard time getting started on the tablet pilot, so we really honestly haven't been doing the pilot as long as we wish that we had. So the students are not using online textbooks anyway. So the teachers are not having students use their web versions of textbooks, they use paper textbooks. Okay. And all of the resources that the teachers have created for the students to use are mostly in Google Drive. And every document that goes into Google Drive, you have the option to download straight to the device and take it home with you.
Maybe we don't need textbooks.
Well, I mean, there are web-based textbooks for most all of our courses, and hopefully, you know, if we had the devices and had them in the students' hands on a regular basis where they could count on them, that is one of the next things that I hope that we can do this next 9 weeks to help students realize that that resource is there and help them use it, at least these 55 kids.
Right. And in your initial research, the Windows 8 accesses more of our textbooks than the Apple. Is that what you found?
Right now, in Earth Science and Algebra 1, all of the electronic resources are web-based, and they all require Flash. So yes, the Windows 8 tablet is more effective than the Apple tablet.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Very happy to hear about the collaborative working.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
amazing.
These days when you see people with their devices, they're by themselves, and our society is becoming very isolated, I believe that way. And when we talk to employers, it's one of the vital things they need is folks to be able to work together and problem solve. So I'm glad to hear that. How many students are involved as a total?
55.
Wow. Any other?
Yeah, just it seemed like there was a reference there that some of the students were using them for other classes, to do certain things, taking pictures of notes and all that kind of thing. Can you give us kind of an idea how some of the other ways they were using it, minus the algebra and the earth science class?
At this point, the students are allowed to use the tablets in other classrooms where teachers will allow them.
Mm-hmm.
So in the other classrooms, it's kind of like a BYOD situation where the teachers don't know exactly what all kids are going to bring into their classrooms, and they just have these tablets trickled into their rooms a few at a time. But Dr. Bainham noticed in one of the classrooms that he observed there was a student that decided to use his tablet for geography lesson, yeah. And instead of going to the book and finding the map, they went into a Google map, and naturally other students in the classroom were working with that student who had the iPad. So they're using the calendar all day long. They use their web resources whenever the teachers will let them. And so it's just, they're doing what they do. They use the devices naturally, and when the teachers will let them, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments? In the what do we want to learn, did you get any measurements as to attitudes toward learning which rolled over into engagement of the students, which moved into the attendance and discipline? I tie those four elements together. If you've got engaged students and they're learning, they will attend more and there'll be less discipline. Is there any way that you could give us an inkling as to how that went?
Well, we're still learning, so we will know more by the end of the school year. These kids are going to keep their tablets until the end of the year so that the pilot is not over. We're just giving you an update on where we are. But I can give you an example of where I'm seeing engagement and no discipline problems. Would you like to hear my example?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the student who mentioned the project that she completed in Ms. Rust's class actually was a 2-day project where the students were all assigned one different type of erosion. And so their assignment was based on a rubric of information that they were supposed to find, but their job was to go out and use their web resources on the tablet that was right in front of them to find out information about one specific type of erosion. And then they were to bring the information back that they've noted and create a video, kind of like a broadcast of what the erosion was about. And then their video would be uploaded to one location on the web where all of the students could see the videos of all the different types of erosion. And I watched that class for 2 days do their web research. They worked in groups, small groups, or in partners. Some of them worked alone. That's one of the beauties of the devices, that it allows for either or. The kids have the choice. I didn't see one discipline problem in the classroom at all. I watched all of the students stay engaged for two whole class periods, and these are 90-minute blocks, doing this project. And by the end of the second day, the students had created their videos, uploaded their videos to the drive, and had a very engaging experience. And I didn't take attendance, but I think all of the kids were there. So just providing that environment and those rich assignments, it's impressive.
This is, in my opinion, this is really where the 21st century education is headed. Exactly the example you just gave. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. And maybe this is for Ms. Weaver mainly, but what is our next step after this pilot is over for these devices, where will they go? And also, did we have some of these donated to us? I calculate this was probably about $38,000 kind of price tag. How did we fund these? Although I love the video, I think it's all great, but just love to know those answers.
That's actually my
question.
The Auburn iPads that they used were part of the construction processes. We've been going through in the new buildings, and what we use for the 21st century classroom is we're starting to move to that direction. So that was already an inventory at Auburn High School. And I think a nice outcome of the pilot was it basically dusted those devices off, and now you've got a buzz going on in the school. I think I can say that. I've got both principals, and now we've got some good teachers showing good things, and I think that will be contagious with those devices. The CHS devices, which were 30, I think, or so, Windows 8, were bought with SOL testing initiative money, which they qualify for. And it's really a reward for the enthusiasm that school had for this project. Those will stay in that school as part of their inventory.
Like a laptop. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the presenters. The next item is the special education annual plan, and welcome to Mr. Jones, who just walked in. The special education annual plan and report 2014-15 was provided to school board members for review on Tuesday, April 1st, 2014. The special education annual plan is a state mandated document which provides supportive information regarding how Montgomery County Public Schools implements state special education regulations. It is not designed to include information related to methods or strategies for program delivery. This plan requires your action tonight and is recommended for approval by the superintendent.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments or in reference to this plan? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. And I'll now turn the gavel over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I'll continue on with the third item, Brown versus Board of Education 60th anniversary. On March 21st, the Virginia School Board Association Board of Directors unanimously approved a resolution commemorating the 60th anniversary of the United States Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus the Board of Education, saying it has had a profound, significant, and beneficial impact on all aspects of life in the United States. While the historic decision repudiated the doctrine of separate but equal, ruling that separate educational systems, by their very nature, could not be equal. The board noted that many areas of our nation are still struggling with the vestiges of segregation in America. The ruling is worthy of continued reflection as public schools strive to make a world-class education available to all children, regardless of such difference as race, income, and ethnicity. The Virginia School Board Association Board of Directors encourages Virginia school boards to pass similar resolutions in commemoration of the historic civil rights decision made on May 17, 1954, and encourages direct student participation through essays, creative arts, lectures, research and writing, community projects, and other activities to foster personal commitment to democracy. At this time, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the resolution as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the resolution?
Just one thing I would just want to ask, what are there plans that we have going on in the schools as it was suggested by the Virginia School Board Association about what the students are participating in, how they are going to be directly involved in this?
I'm going to yield to the Miss Dr. Graham on that one.
I will talk more with our social studies director, but yes, we have ongoing plans at all times to look at this. We do various activities throughout the year. It's an ongoing process.
Yes. I think it's a great thing for us to do, obviously, and I would love to, if we have some things that are produced that we could see or just be made aware of, I think it would be great just to acknowledge it.
We'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Well, let me add something to that. Something that concerns me is there's things going on in the schools that I find out about after the fact. Is there a way that when these things happen, such as what you're referring to, that we can be added to that list of people who are notified so that we can have the opportunity, if we choose to attend at different schools?
We'll certainly try to do that. We have
If I may,
a
Dr.
majority of things. We do have the calendar that you already get, and each school puts out a calendar each month as well. But yes, we can add more. Brenda?
I was going to say that the calendar of activities covers a large majority of those events. You get those at the first meeting of every month.
Well, I'm not sure it's a large majority, but you're right, there's a lot of things, but I've missed some things over the last years that I've read about after the fact that kind of concern me, and they weren't on the calendar. Right. And I know that's not a lot of things, but still, anything we could do, because I think...
We'll remind schools to be sure to update that calendar and try to make sure everything's on it. There's just such a wealth of activities that I know some things get left off.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, because I was going to do the same thing. When we celebrated Rosa Parks' contribution to the civil rights movement, and we actually took the seat on the bus and dedicated that and marked it as to this is what she did, and we're going to do this symbolically with a seat on our bus. And that kind of fell by the wayside. And I would hope that we could go back and pick that up again to commemorate that day. So I also would like to see some presentations to the board as to what exactly, our children have learned from Brown versus the Board of Education, and how it actually affected schools in Virginia that shut their doors because they were not going to have children, black and white, educated in the same buildings. So I would really like to have us make a big deal out of this and help folks understand just how far we've come, and quite frankly, in some ways, how far we haven't come.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item, a salary scale committee. We have a guest presenter tonight on the salary scale study. So Mr. McAlandra will introduce the presenters or presenter from Evergreen.
Thank you, Dr. Staten. Mr. Jones, members of the board. Just very quickly, I'd like to recap some of the things that we've done since November. We formed a committee of the salary study committee, and we met on November 21st, and again this past week on April 10th. We have some of those members with us tonight. And if you're here, if you could just... Thank you. We met, and I'll share with you their wishes at the end of this, or what they would like for me to carry forward with you all. But this, it's important to note that the names on this come from all employee groups and all strands of the school division. When we started this back in November, from the feedback that we received from the board and from the committee was to develop an RFP that would look at a two compensation system that would be both the step and tier-based for teachers and staff. The second part of this RFP was to develop an implementation plan to look at down the road. Where are we going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? How can we implement this without giving it all in one fell swoop? Because it would be a lot to make up the ground that we've lost. We couldn't do that all at once. So we were looking at an implementation plan as well. The last part of this project is we wanted them to be completed with it, which is a pretty big task to be completed by March. At the end of March for an April presentation to you all, because we started this process again in November. And there was a lot of things that went on in the last 5 years that needed to be looked at, people at different steps and so on. So it was a big task for just my department. I'd like to thank them as well, and Evergreen for the work that's been done. And tonight to tell you about their work that they completed in correlation with the Human Resources Department and Payroll Department is Elizabeth Aldridge.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And I'd like to walk through this evening for you what we did and what options we came up with. We started the project with two parameters. First, we were to use your current salary schedule in our analysis and our recommendations. And second, we needed to identify how far each individual employee was behind in the schedule versus compared to their years of experience. What we didn't do in this project is we did not look at whether or not employees were placed correctly on the scale when they were hired. We didn't look at misclassifications, nor did we look at increasing the stipends. We came up with 4 options. We looked at, as going through this process, we looked at your current salary schedule, we looked at each individual employee, and then we tried to determine ways in which you could make up ground. As Joe mentioned, over the past few years, some of your or most of your employees have gotten behind in the schedule versus where their years of experience would place them. And so we wanted to come up with some options to help you make up ground or make employees whole. So the 4 options that you have in your summary that I'll go over this evening, the first one is simply to give employees 1 step over each year for their newly acquired experience. So you're not going to go backwards, but employees would not make up any ground. We'd simply start where you are and each year give them a step for their newly acquired experience based on your current schedule as it is published. To do that, the cost of that would be just about $1 million, and that does include benefits. So again, that doesn't make up steps. That simply starts here and moves people forward. Everyone would gain a step each year based on their new experience, and in subsequent years, it would be the same concept. So that's really kind of the baseline. Where would you start? Option 1. Option 2 looks at, my apologies. Option 2 looks at beginning to make up steps for employees. It uses your current salary schedule as it's published. Everyone going into the next school year would receive their 1 step that they would get for their new experience. And then all of those employees that are a step behind would gain 1 additional step. So most of your employees would get 2 steps next year. 1 for their new experience, 1 to make up or try to move them towards where they should be. Most of your employees are about 4 years behind, or up to 4 years behind, the teachers. You do have some non-teacher employees who are 5 years behind, but by and large, the teachers are about 4 years behind. And those teachers at the top of the scale, you do have some teachers at the top of the scale, they would not receive an increase. So to use this option, if you looked at your current schedule as it's published, and you think next year everybody gets a step for their new experience, everyone who's behind a step gets a 2nd step. In doing it that way, the cost would be about $1.9 million. and that does include benefits.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So we're talking about teachers. What about other employees?
All the employees were looked at in this study. Most of your employees are teachers, and they're about 4 steps behind. You have varying degrees of other employees at various stages, up to 5 years behind. But we looked at every individual employee, and we identified how far behind each individual is. And so when we gave the solution to Joe, it shows by individual how far they have to make up.
Thank you.
That study does not include hourly employees, all right? The hourly employees?
Yes, ma'am. It includes all employees. Now, part-time employees would not be considered, that were not considered in this study.
Okay, that's what I asked.
Yes.
So an example of option number 2 for an employee who is 4 steps behind is presented here. So if I'm an employee that's 4 steps behind and I'm currently on step 0 this school year, next school year I would get my 1 year for my new experience plus a makeup, so I would be placed on the 2nd step, and so on until I've made up all of my steps. And you can see there are a few examples there. If I was on step 5 and I was 4 years behind, then over the course of 4 years, I would end up at step 13, which is where I should be in your current pay plan.
And so for each of those years, you would need this 1.97 million in the budget.
The cost changes each year depending on various factors, but it's outlined in your final summary over each year what the difference from 1 year to the next is for increase in salaries as well as benefits. And that does take into account giving the step that an employee deserves for the new experience plus the catch-up.
You said the employees are 4 steps behind?
The employees vary.
Okay.
Depends on when they were hired and whether they were a teacher or a non-teacher. So on average, teachers were about 4 steps behind. You had non-teachers that ranged anywhere from a year to 5 years behind.
So in the next year, I'll give them 2 steps. In the following year, I give 2 more steps. That equals 4 steps. So
you're giving, depending, let me talk about an individual.
Okay.
So I'm an individual and I'm 4 steps behind. Rather than make a recommendation that you give me all 4 steps at once, what we wanted to do was spread that out over 4 years. So I'm an employee this year. I'm going to stand next year. I now have an additional year of experience that you would typically give me on a normal schedule, but you're also going to give me an additional step. So I do that 4 years to make up my 4 steps.
Okay.
So in the option 3 and 4, we do the exact same thing with the steps. Each year, give the individual the step that they've newly acquired plus a makeup step. What's different, and I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. In option 2, the next slide shows you what the salary would be for that example that I just gave. So if I am, and this is from the teacher's salary, if I'm a teacher and I'm currently on step 0 and I'm 4 steps behind, currently I'm making $37,000. Next year, I would get 2 steps. I would still be making $37,000 because on your current schedule, the 2nd step is $37,000. But then in the 15-16 school year, I would get my 2 steps. That would move me up to 38, and then so on and so on. And again, this looks exactly like your current published pay plan. Now, where things differ slightly is when we move into options 3 and 4. We talk about a modified salary schedule. Employees would still move, as we've just discussed. You get your year of experience plus a makeup year until you've made up time. What has changed is the salary schedule itself. So in this example here in option 3, what we've done is we've collapsed 3 years of experience onto 1 step, or a tier, if you will. And the salary for that tier is based on the lowest salary in that grouping. So for instance, in steps 0, 1, and 2, the salary for that grouping would be step 0. And then for the tier 3, 4, and 5, the salary for that tier would be step 3. And it would work its way through the schedule in that way. So again, an employee gets a year of experience for their new year of experience plus a makeup, and they would continue in that process until they are where they should be on the modified plan. The cost to do this in the first year is just under $1 million at $926,000. And this is an example here of the teacher's modified salary schedule. So you can see there, Tier A includes the years of experience 0, 1, and 2. So for the bachelor's degree, it's $37,000. Tier B is 3 to 5 years, it moves up to $37,600, and so on.
So,
and we did the same thing for the other salary schedules.
Okay, so make sure I'm following you. If I am in a tier where I'm in year 1, 2, or 3, I would be collapsed down to the lowest amount in that tier, even if I was making more.
No, now in our recommendations, we never suggest to you that someone's actual pay be reduced.
Okay.
So we would not say to you, oh, you're currently making $39,500 now, we're going to move you down. We don't make that recommendation. If we find an instance like that, what we suggest is you keep that individual there until they move up or they catch up with everyone else, and then they would move forward the same way as everyone else.
So basically you would freeze their wages until
Correct.
everyone caught up to them.
Correct. So I don't believe the way you're currently structured that we would have that situation, simply because you have employees who are behind in their steps. So most, and I'd have to go back and look at the analysis again, but most people get some type of increase because, again, they're behind in steps. So in this modified plan, what we did, again, was collapse 3 years into one tier, and we used the salary of the lowest step in that tier. And this is an example of what that would look like for an employee who's 4 steps behind. We look at, for me, let's say again as a teacher, I am currently on step 0, 4 steps behind. Next year I would get my 2 steps. What that would translate to then in the modified plan is tier A. And then as you can see in 15-16, I go 4 steps, tier B, 6 is C, and 8 is C. And the next slide is the salaries that would go along with that. And in your final summary, what we have done is we have outlined what the salary schedule would look like for this tiered approach for teachers and non-teachers. So option 4 is conceptually the same. The difference here is that when we collapsed the 3 years into one tier, we didn't use the minimum, we used the average of those 3 salaries. So again, if I'm an individual who's 4 steps behind, in the next school year I would get my regular step plus a makeup step. And then when I looked at the modified plan, the tier is based on the average of the 3 steps. So this system, of what we are proposing, encourages makeup over an extended period of time, 4 or 5 years at the most, depending on what type of employment the individual is in. Again, teachers at the most are 4 steps behind, where other personnel are up to 5 steps behind. So this distributes the cost over a 5-year period. And to move into option number 4, the cost is just over $1.9 million, and that does include benefits. This is an example of what the teacher's salary scale would look like in option 4. The modified plan. Again, the same example for the employee who's 4 steps behind. You can see the tiers there, A, B, C, and C for the very first line. And then in the next slide is the pay that would be commensurate with that tier. Do you have any questions about how we went about developing the options?
Are these typical options that school systems that have been like us have tried to get back to, I assume?
Typically what happens for school systems is they want to make it up over about 5 years. And I closed out a project a few months ago where that school system was 5 steps behind. And they looked at doing 2 steps per year to catch up.
Was that school system in Virginia?
Yes.
Are you recommending one of these options?
We are not recommending one of the 4. Again, that's going to be really based on what you're capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. And has the committee already seen this and talked about these different options? Or?
Yes, ma'am. When we met last week, the committee wishes to remain in the step schedule that we currently have. They did not prefer the other tiered system. They would like to make up the steps over a gradual amount of time as well. But just to make sure that teachers' years of experience or employees' years of experience match the step is where they would like to be.
So they're option 1 or 2?
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Woosley, when you hear Ms. Blackburn's presentation, she has used one of the options in her recommendation process.
In option 1, does everyone get an increase, even the people at the top? So
that would be that's in any system that you develop. That's always the problem, is that the people at the top of the scale, it would have to be some kind of board decision about what those people would get, if there would be any increases to those folks at all.
So in all of these options, do the people at the top of the scale get moved up in their steps as well?
When you say top of the scale, are you referring to people that have topped out?
Yeah, people who've maxed out now.
No, sir. No, sir. Those people, unless the board decides, and that would be a year-to-year decision as well, with that amount that would be considered. These figures that we've given you tonight have that in mind as well, is that they do not include any increases to the top of the scale.
So the people with 30 or plus years of experience who've maxed out wouldn't receive anything right now unless we made a decision that said that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so there's still the issue of our part-time employees and how that plays into the budget when it comes to salary.
When you're referring to part-time employees, are you which
hourly employees?
The hourly employees, such as bus drivers or not even bus drivers, they're paid on basically an hourly rate, but it's a daily rate. Are those and others like our custodians and paraprofessionals and such? These are all considered in here. Yes, ma'am. All employees were considered. And pay scales, we gave you examples tonight of teacher pay scale, because otherwise we'd have a lot of pay scales to put up here.
So everyone in the district has been considered in this scale?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. In that figure that we gave you, yes, ma'am. And when just to clarify as well, when we talk about benefits, we're talking about the VRS benefits that go along with that. Okay, FICA.
All of these options give us a number for the first year, the increases. Do we have anything that on paper projecting for the years to come?
Yes, we put that in the final summary. The document that you received, it's mapped out over 5 years.
Okay. I guess I need to look at that one.
It's
Okay,
the
I see it.
The PDF.
I see it.
When did we get this?
I have a comment. I guess I've been on this board too long because I'm becoming jaundiced.
We got them yesterday.
I look at these pay scales and I just think this is ridiculous. We're taking our children and our grandchildren and we're putting them in the care of people, and we expect those people to teach them, engage with them, listen to them when they're having their difficulties, and keep them safe. And that's just part of it, because there's a whole lot of other things that go on in those classrooms that are all very positive, and we want our kids to receive that. And I look at these pay scales, and we're 4 or 5 years behind, and I'm thinking to myself, this isn't going to happen. I don't know how we're going to pull ourselves out of this mess unless the state starts backing us, supporting us, and the community starts supporting us. And primarily, I'm looking at the fact that our teachers are the hardest working people that I know of. Again, that's my opinion, but that's the way it is with me. And for us to put these 4 options before these teachers, I look at that and I say, oh my goodness. I don't know how anybody can do what they do and live a lifestyle that they would like to live with that salary. I just had to say that. Let me ask a question. If you are a teacher and you're a college graduate, raise your hand, please. And keep your hand up if you have a master's degree. Now, there's a lot of hands out there. And with a master's degree, I don't even want to go beyond that, 30 years beyond a master's or a doctoral degree. And 6 years of education for $39,000 starting. Wow. That just, and I'm not only talking about teachers. I'm talking about the bus drivers who do the same thing. They keep our children safe. They keep them engaged. They get them around to where they're supposed to be. And the bus driver that took my grandchildren and takes my grandchildren to school, I love him. I absolutely love him. The custodians in the different schools nurture the kids. They just don't push a broom. They actually, some of the children that I've spoken to, I say, who do you like in this school best? And I'm waiting for the teacher's name, and they give me the custodian's name. And what do we pay custodians? Oh my goodness. This whole county has got to realize that these kids are our future. And what we're doing is we're just tearing our future apart. We can't get into the 21st century. We just can't do it. And yet everyone around us is going to be there, and we're going to be saying, how is it? Because we don't know. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So you mentioned the superintendent's going to have a recommendation. Is that what I heard earlier?
Yes, sir. What you're hearing me say is that, and I don't want to get into it, stealing her thunder on it, but she had to have a baseline to start from to give you a viable option to look at. So she chose one of the 4 options as a planning factor and to give you some reasonable numbers to work with.
Okay. And the consultant did not make a recommendation. What about the committee that's looked at this? Was that a joint recommendation with the superintendent?
Yeah, no, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a joint recommendation, because I asked the committee, independent of the superintendent, of what their recommendation was, and again, they're very much in favor of staying with the step schedule as we have it, but creating something that would allow teachers and employees to match years of service to their step.
And our teacher association involvement?
They were lockstep with us.
Okay.
We also provided them information, gave them a scattergram at the beginning of this process. Basically, a scattergram is just where employees are currently and where they were in the tiers. We shared that information with them, and I believe after meeting with the MCEA and the UNISERV director a few weeks ago, we are very much lockstep with what they're asking.
Thank you. You know what else teachers do too, don't you? They open up their paycheck and they go, oh my God, when they look at it, because they're taking home less money.
That's right.
We got an email today about that.
Yes.
That's all any other discussion on the presentation? Thank you all for your hard work. Thanks to the committee for their hard work.
I think it's a great study. Thank you very much. It's a thorough job.
Thank you for having us.
I would just say with the information they just provided, though, it would seem like they're leaning toward option 2.
Okay, at this time, Ms. Blackburn will present her modified budget recommendation.
I'm sorry, Dr. Staton. We're moving to the facilities update.
Oh, that's right. We
moved the
did
agenda around. I apologize.
I apologize. So the next facilities update will be presented by Mr. Dan Burno.
Good evening, Dr. Staton, Mr. Jones, board members. First item on there, the cabinets are still expected in May. They're not in yet, but we still expect them to be completed in May. We're wrapping up the design on the roofs for Margaret Beeks and Christiansburg Elementary, and we expect to put those out to bid next week. This week we're going to do an advance notice of the solicitation to give the bidders a little more time to plan for that.
So do you have a timeline on these of any sort, like when the bids are going to close? I mean, this has kind of been going on and on and on. I'm just curious if we have an end date or a projected end date when we're going to.
Yes, I believe the bid date, advertisement date is currently April 24th, and I think they're being advertised for about 15 days.
Okay.
A lot of times we usually have a pre-bid conference where companies come in, ask their questions, and sometimes the answers we put out and we give a few extra days for bidding. Christiansburg area feasibility study, we did receive a draft for review, and the A&E is continuing their meetings with the town and county engineers on utilities and traffic and those type of things, and those will happen. I believe those will finish up this week, and then we have an internal meeting planned for next week.
A&E is architects and engineers?
A&E's, yes, architects and engineers, yes. Yes, ma'am.
And refresh my memory, when we say Christiansburg area, specifically?
The schools, the elementary schools and the elementary school issue capacity and future projects, CES, CPS, Bellevue, Falling Branch, okay. And then the high school. And we're also considering the use of the old CMS campus. We're also considering the alternative schools, Independent Secondary and Phoenix, and also Rivendell.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Shawsville Middle School Annex, that is going to bid in 2 solicitations. The first one for removal of asbestos-containing material. That bid closes May the 9th. The demolition, main demolition bid is planned to go out to bid on April the 22nd, with bid closing towards the end of May. The work will actually start after the 4th of July. We'll begin with asbestos containing material removal, which is primarily the roof membrane, and floor tile. And then as that wraps up, then we'll get into the main demolition. It will be tight. We know we will not be able to complete it in our 5-week summer, but we are working with the design and the engineers and the planning, and we'll work with the bidders to make sure we get as much as we can finished by the time the students get back, and then we'll have a safety plan to keep that area, which is across the street from Shawsville Middle School, safe and keep the noise down and traffic down as much as possible. We'll do things as we do in other construction projects. We'll say contractor during morning bus time and drop-off time, no traffic from construction, same in the afternoon. We have a lot of these other projects. You'll see a lot added, but we are working on them and getting them done. Third one down, the rubberized track service at BHS. We did get bids on that. We got 5 bids, and we're in the award process, and we're coordinating that work with the low bidder of that work before we award it, make sure that he's in coordination with Branch when they're doing their punch list on the track itself. Couple items down, Harding Avenue, safe routes to school trail. We're working that with the town of Blacksburg. That was a grant approved a couple years ago. That's in final design. It's been reviewed and coordinated with the schools, the administration, and the police, and that's expected to be constructed this summer. The lead in construction of that will be the town of Blacksburg Public Works Department. Couple down, you'll see the bold complete. That was a concessions trailer that's operated by the athletic club. They purchased that, and you'll see that now around at the different athletic venues. Couple further down, Margaret Beek, safe routes to school trail, same thing. It's in final design to be constructed this summer. One that's been on the list for a while, a few months anyway, as a pending project. We got some details submitted. That's the installed bluegrass sod on the stadium field. That's sponsored by the Blacksburg Athletic Club. Basically, it's importing topsoil and improving the crown and slope to each drain on the sides, raising the irrigation, and then installing bluegrass sod. And we are working on reviewing that and making sure that the money is there and lining that up for the approval process, which we expect to happen next month. Price's Fork walking trail, that has been on the list, but we just got some details on that. It's a small trail similar to one they have in the kindergarten playground. Will be in the upper level grade playground. It's for trikes and walking trail, and we're working the issues on that to include reviewing the drainage and the impact on the overall playground area. The greenhouse at Eastmont High School, that was completed recently, I think a couple weeks ago. This commemorative sidewalk pavers are in process. The BHS plant shrubs, that was also a pending one. We just received that this week. Basically, that's being sponsored by the Beta Club. It's in review. It's a flower and plant memorial garden near the main entrance.
What's the Beta Club?
The Beta Club is a club at Blacksburg High School. I don't know its exact makeup and mission.
Academic club.
Beta Club is kind of similar to an honors society. It's usually consisted of students in the upper percentile of classes, scores in A's and B's, and they do various projects around the community and whatnot. Being a former Beta Club member myself, know a little bit about it.
Thank you.
The Bluebird boxes, I reported on that last time, is in process, and those are complete. The storage sheds for the CTE program, they're in process, being built by the CTE classes themselves. And one that's coming up, in fact, I just received an email right around 5 o'clock today from Atmos Energy. They're going to be asking the board and the Board of Supervisors to approve gas line easement to serve the Wynwood Estates that is right behind CMS, the same one that you gave recommendation for stormwater easement to the Board of Supervisors, if you remember, back in November, December. And then the last two, not big projects, but I think the kids will really like them. American Chestnut Trees, sponsored by the Lions Club at Price's Fork, and Sequoia Trees, both of these in honor of this Arbor Day that's coming up. This is the county administrator's update for us on the former school properties. The former Blacksburg High School, the second one down, what happened there recently was we turned over the keys to the building to the county personnel, and they're basically in charge of the building. Of course, they own, Board of Supervisors has taken the deed for that property. We are using the baseball and softball fields through this season. Former Price's Fork Elementary School, we talked about the rezoning that the supervisors and the prospective developer purchaser of that property are doing. There's a community meeting on that April 23rd. There's also a planning committee public hearing May 14th and a Board of Supervisors public hearing May 27th. So around the end of May, that hopefully will be rezoned, and there'll be the finalization then of the agreement with the developer. Shawsville Elementary School, that was accepted on the 24th of March by the Board of Supervisors from the school board, and they plan on offering that building for sale this spring. As they do the old school board office on Junkin Street, they plan to offer that for sale this spring. And Ellison Fayette, that's actually, there's no update on that. That is already sold and rezoned.
So we skipped over old Blacksburg Middle School.
There was no update that I could find out on that, ma'am.
I just attended their community meeting. The Board of Supervisors and mostly town of Blacksburg citizens were there. And they have a date to get together. It's April 29, when school board has our budget public hearing. The same evening, the town of Blacksburg will be meeting with Board of Supervisors, and the major item on the agenda is Old Blacksburg Middle School property. So they both said they will go forward and do their best. So I was the only school board member or school board representation that evening, and it was an interesting meeting, at least to say, but they are planning on going forward, both sides, in good faith, so hopefully.
That's great.
Thank you.
And on the capital maintenance projects, I did want to tell you on the state security grant matching funds for the security of the A phones. Recently, we did bring another 3 schools up online, Gilbert Linkus, Kipps Elementary, and Margaret Beeks. And there were previously 5, Falling Branch Harding, Christiansburg Elementary, Christiansburg High School, and Christiansburg Primary School. So I know technology department is moving on with that, and that is looking really good. Any other questions?
Back on page 1 where he's talking about the demolition, you know, it was brought up at one of the public meetings that we were going to tear everything down, but that's not the case, as I understand it. Around the football field and some of the athletic fields and stuff like that, none of that's being...
No, right now we're concentrating only on the building itself.
Okay. But there was also some concerns about its safety and its wear and tear.
Right.
subsequent to that?
Basically, what is the need for in the future of the other facilities to include bleachers, lights, some crowd control fencing, and that type of thing.
Who owns that? Who owns that property? Is it still us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
We do.
So we're liable if we've
Yes.
got some safety
Yes,
concerns
sir.
or issues there, then
Yeah.
we're the ones liable. And I think that we're going to be looking into that.
Yes, sir. And I know, I haven't gotten any feedback from the Board of Supervisors or from the county, but they are, I did recently ask about it, and they are, have started some discussions, but there's no formal discussions on the matter. So we're waiting to see what the county wants to do with that property and in terms of a joint venture to correct the safety items that we mentioned with the bleachers and the posts, the lighting posts and so on. Yes, sir.
And then the consent. I didn't mean to catch you off guard with that, but I mean, maybe that's something that we might want to add to that to not lose focus of it since it is a safety issue.
Yes, sir.
So it is our responsibility to do the assessment of the safety of that. That's what we're saying, right?
We don't have the county's going to have to do it because they have the building inspector. We don't.
Okay. So we just need to follow up on that. Okay.
Which is what they're doing.
Hopefully.
Since they brought it up in public.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's safe to say now we can move to, we had the budget item on the agenda. And let me just say that Ms. Blackburn wanted to make certain that she have, as we move forward in this budget process, that she thought it was important that the board and the public heard directly from her. At this point, as she moves to a second round of budget reduction listings. So at this point, at this time, we will hear directly from Ms. Blackburn, and she will present to you her most current reductions list.
As I'm pulling the video up, you have 3 sheets at the dais that you might want to pull out for reference as she's going through.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Yes, it's budget time again, and once again we are facing the challenges of making some very tough decisions. To briefly recap, over the last 5 budget years we have faced amazing challenges as state funding specifically has consistently declined, and in one year our budget was as low as $88 million. Finally, this year, our budget of $97 million is approaching the level of 2008. But we all know that $2008 won't buy you the same thing as it did in the 2015 market. So once again, our needs outpace our revenue. The timeline for budget development is one of the problems that we face each year. As you know, for example, this year, the school district budget had to go to the Board of Supervisors in early February. At that time, we not only did not know how much money we were going to get from the county, we didn't know how much money we were going to have from the state. As it turns out, our county funding is level, however, minus about $575,000 that they have given us over the last 2 years in one-time funding. And the state continues to bicker over a budget for the next biennium, and Montgomery County Public Schools funding from the state remains an unknown. Other unknowns that are critical to budget development include the cost of employee health care and the real cost to begin to systematically improve our employee compensation in a meaningful way. We have had 5 years of stagnation. It is tough to build a budget when you don't know your total revenue and when you don't know your total expenses. Fortunately, some of the pieces are beginning to come together, and with more information, my staff and I have developed a modified budget recommendation that I will present to you here this evening. My purpose tonight is to show budget modifications based on your April 1st meeting discussion, available new information, and to set a basis for your future discussions. On the dais, you have 3 documents. These I will refer to throughout my presentation tonight. They are, first, my original budget reduction recommendations dated March 15, 2014. Second, you have my modified budget balancing reductions that I'm sharing this evening, dated April 15, 2014, with the areas that have changed since March being shown in a highlighted area on your budget sheet. You also have a 2014-15 school operating budget as it would look if you accepted the recommendations that I'm making this evening. At your April 1 meeting, there was agreement among the board members present on 2 things. First, you set an improvement in employee compensation as a priority. And second, you asked that central staffing be evaluated for possible additional reductions. The modified recommendations that I will make this evening address those 2 items as well as other areas in the budget discussion about which there appeared to be agreement among at least 4 board members. Rather than speak to every single line of the budget, I'm going to only speak to those items that are experiencing a change based on the modified recommendations this evening. I'll start with line 2 under the sub-area educational program. Beginning with line 2, the field trips line has been reduced slightly more with a total reduction of $32,116. Please note, especially since we have 2 new board members, that the field trip budget has never been designed to fully fund all field trips. Rather, it is designed to supplement other funding and focus on the schools with the highest free reduced lunch rates. Last year, over $250,000 was spent on field trips. Some of the funding came from the school board allocation, but the funding also came from PTA, PTO organizations, fundraising, school activity funds, and parental contributions. Line 5, supplies, has been reduced by an additional $238,367 for a grand total reduction of $336,141 or 12%. At the April 1 school board meeting in public discussion, some speakers suggested this as an area for additional reduction. The budget was just restored in 2013-2014. So, before I felt comfortable making additional cuts to this category, I had the status of current supply budgets reviewed, and they do reflect a tolerance for this reduction. Line 9, math enhancements, has been zeroed out with an increased reduction of $44,478. Some of these materials may be able to be purchased with textbook funds, and others will have to be delayed. We have invested greatly in our math program over the last 2 years, and I am optimistic that investment can sustain our program in 2015. Line 10, website content management system, has been deleted. We will live with the quality that we can get on our website using the current freeware. The additional savings is $30,935. Continuing to compensation and benefits, and we're still looking at the April 15th document. Line 12, full coverage paid by the board for HMO only is not a new recommendation, but I want to briefly mention it because it represents a savings of almost $440,000 and has a minimal impact on employee benefits. The major change is the requirement to have a primary care physician who makes recommendations for specialist care. I provided you with a side-by-side comparison of the two plans in an email on April 7th. In addition, in a review of the 8-county area where our employees live, an average of over 95% of the physicians who are in the PPO plan are also in the HMO plan. And there is one hospital located in North Carolina which is in the PPO plan and not in the HMO. Mr. McAlandra is prepared this evening and at your future meetings to answer questions regarding these two employee benefit plans. Line 14, revisions to salary enhancements. This is a priority area for all board members who were in attendance at the April 1 meeting. You heard the presentation this evening from our salary consultant, Evergreen. The options presented have been vetted with the MCEA and the Salary Committee, and many of the people from MCEA and the Salary Committee are present here this evening. I thank them for their engagement in this salary review process. Tonight, I recommend the option for teachers that maintains a years of service schedule and moves the employees one step and a makeup step for the 2015 fiscal year. All other employees also move 2 years within the salary schedule for that employee group. The cost of this recommended compensation enhancement is $2,120,000. Repairing the damage of 5 very lean years will require the board's commitment to compensation as a priority every year. My recommendation also includes a 1.75% increase for employees in every employee group who are at the top of their scale. The only group that will not see an increase through my recommendation are the employees who are currently at level 00. And if we are able to continue this compensation program, those employees will also see an increase in year 2. My recommendation is actually $232,000 less than the earlier projected cost of salary improvement, which was $2,352,000. Line 15. In the case of our RFP for health insurance, the competitive bid process and negotiations with providers by Montgomery County Public Schools staff really worked. The original budget approved by the board planned for a 10% increase in the cost of health insurance. Although details continue to be worked out and the final cost determination may not be known until summer, the competitive bidding process results and the move to self-insurance make it safe to budget for a maximum increase of 2.9% or a reduction from the original estimate of $883,000. Line 16. This is a new budget reduction line. On March 31st, we received notice from the VRS that we would have the option of electing a lower rate for VRS non-professional employee groups for this biennium. For those who were on the board 2 years ago, you may remember that Montgomery County Public Schools accepted a similar lower rate reduction for the same employee group in the spring of 2012. There is no negative consequence to the employee, and based on the VRS actuarial tables, the rates for this group are actually expected to decline over the next 5 years. Therefore, I recommend the board accept this as a very low-risk opportunity to reduce an additional $83,000 from our expenditure requirements. Line 17. Montgomery County Public Schools supports maintaining a desirable staffing ratio at every grade level. Despite the economic demands of the last 5 years, class size has increased on average by only 1 student. You received a current grade level configuration summary of PTR in my email to you on April the 7th. Considering a net loss in positions in the school district over the last 5 years of 56.56 positions, this is quite an accomplishment. Based on review of the current class size, discussion by the board at your April 1 meeting, and maximizing other reductions, as well as using some cost avoidance opportunities, I have reduced my recommendation for school-based staffing reductions by 50%. This equates to a reduction of 11 positions rather than the original recommendation of 22 positions at the school level. I anticipate that 3 or 4 of these positions will be from the elementary school in grades 4 and 5 or in the compressed scheduling of specialties, and the remainder of the reductions will be in the high schools grade 9 through 12. If approved, these changes will be accomplished through a combination of change in class size, realignment of programs, and reduction in programs and course offerings, particularly those that have 10 or less students enrolled. I expect all impacted employees will be placed in another position within the school division. I'm going to deal with lines 18, 19, and 20 together. These reductions occur at the level of central office services. The recommendations include the reduction of the newest position in HR, which was approved in January, the addition of the IT/RT position in technology, which was approved in March in your preliminary budget, and the reduction in the length of the contract year for 3 other central office positions. These will be a change in 1 position from 12 months to 10 months and 2 positions from 12 months to 11 months. Moving to the area of support services, starting with line 22. Academic and athletic stipends support student engagement and opportunities outside the traditional curriculum. Teachers and approved community persons receive stipends or supplements for coaching and sponsoring, and other teachers receive a stipend for performing additional duties that impact the overall school. Initially, I proposed reducing these supplements by 20% in total cost. My revised recommendation reduces this to a 10% reduction with an actual cost savings of $56,566. Montgomery County Public Schools budgets over $565,000 to support these opportunities for students and additional services at our schools. I believe 10% is a reasonable reduction that can be made without significant impact to opportunities for students or overall school operations. Schools, under the direction of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and the Director of Secondary, will make the reductions based on the interest and participation of students at that school. Line 23. The reduction to the professional development travel budget has been increased by an additional 15%, resulting in a total 25% reduction and a savings of $26,763. The board's discussion on April 1st indicated support for even greater reduction to this budget. The title of the budget line is deceptive because it is not just conference travel. It includes a significant amount of essential travel, such as the itinerant travel that is made by employees who have duties at multiple school sites in conjunction with their day-to-day jobs. These are itinerants, teachers, psychologists, and others. Although we will make every effort to contain travel, I feel that the reduction of 25% is the tolerable level for reducing this area of the budget. Line 24 is another new recommendation for cost savings. Through the use of the lower wing of Old Christiansburg Middle School, Rivendell, Phoenix, and independent secondary programs can be centralized, have access to more appropriate space, and result in a cost savings of $4,700. These programs were relocated to Wilson House and rental property when Blacksburg Middle School was moved to Old Christiansburg Middle School. Although the long-term plan for the OCMS building is involved in the future discussion about facility needs for the Christiansburg Strand, it can also offer improved facilities for these three programs and result in a cost savings for the short term. My final recommendation this evening is line 25, and this is a new reduction, and the area is titled Professional Services. The recommendation includes an associated savings of $54,824. This area includes items such as printing and binding, legal services, audit fees, advertising, and consultants. The budget recommendations that I have made this evening provide for some pretty important things for Montgomery County Public Schools. They include compensation improvements for employees valued at $2.12 million. They continue a health insurance plan benefit consistent with current plans and offer one plan at no cost to the employee. They minimize the reduction in services and programs for students, and they spread any staffing reductions across identified grade levels and central office support functions. Some have asked, why do we have to make budget reductions when there is a net increase in the budget for the school district this year of $2.427 million? Consider the following as a starting point to answering the question. We have $1.7 million in new required spending mandates from the state. We have $0.125 million in expected utility rate increase cost, plus the cost for providing utilities for the new Auburn Middle School. We have a $0.3 million increase in health insurance cost for employees. We have made it a priority to provide employee compensation improvements that cost us $2.12 million. We lost $0.575 million in one-time funding from the county for needs such as school buses, technology, and continuation of our roofing plan. We are running a 2015 school division on 2008 money. Impossible to do everything. There remains one funding unknown, and I would solicit your support because we still have an opportunity to make a difference, and that is the outcome of the debate that continues at the state. The House budget reduces Montgomery County Public Schools funding by $40,000. The Senate provides Montgomery County Public Schools with an additional $288,176, and the governor's budget would provide us with an additional $266,664. Contact our elected officials now. We need the additional funding. Over the last 5 budget cycles, I have presented you with over 140 possible areas for cost reductions. You may review them as they are posted online in the Q&A document. No stone has been left unturned in the comprehensive budget review completed by me and by my staff. Some of the recommendations required dramatic changes in how we do business. Many were unpopular. Many were rejected, but many of them were incorporated into a plan that has allowed Montgomery County Public Schools to continue a tradition of excellence that I would put up against any other school system in the nation. I regret that I'm not with you this evening to answer your questions. However, staff has been very involved with me in the development of the budget recommendations that I have reviewed this evening. They are prepared to answer your questions. We have a deadline for completing this budget by May 6th. The time is moving very quickly. I know that through our work together, the budget will be balanced with a laser-like focus on maintaining a school system that supports quality opportunities for our students, for teaching and for learning, and that provides safe environments for every single student every day. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Okay, board members, the staff and I, we're prepared to answer any questions or to hear your discussion.
I know this is for information, but so we can have an organized discussion, I make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for this budget.
Need a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept this budget that you're talking about, the document that's dated April the 15th here in front of us.
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure. We have a motion, we have a second. Now we can open it up for discussion.
Okay. For line line 617, when we're talking about FTEs and what that could affect, what courses are we actually talking about that may have, and where are they located? Where are they located as far as the small classes? I think she referenced that are 10 students or less.
Okay, may I ask, Ms. Weaver's coming forward. Thank you.
I gave you in our last communication a broad list of areas that we're looking at. We won't make final decisions until we have course enrollments and also until we see what attrition possibilities we have, because we obviously want to try very hard to make sure that every person has a place to go to. So that'll impact the decisions we make. But it will be, if we end up having 8 positions at the high school, it'll come from all 4 high schools, and it'll come from all areas: CTE, fine arts, academics, electives.
So we have classes at all 4 high schools that might have 11 kids or less in them currently today?
We do.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. She set the standard at 10, and so right now we're offering classes of that has 10 or less students in it. Do we have any that have even less than that? I mean, do you know off the top of your head which type of classes that have 3, 4, 10?
Again,
as
all
an
varieties.
Right.
We did look at any class that was under 10, and that is rare, but there were some AP classes, some CTE classes, some fine arts classes. There were some in all areas.
And these, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, I'd like to know what those classes are. If these are key courses that may be low, but children really need those to keep moving on, I'd like to know what those are.
I would say that all of our courses are important to our students. I mean, I think that they all are there either to serve their graduation requirements or to prepare them for college and career readiness. So I don't think we offer any courses that aren't important to our students. But there's, like I said, there's courses in all areas that have some low enrollments for a variety of reasons. It could be in some of our smaller schools because we have students who want to take AP classes, but there aren't a large number of them. Could be in some of our bigger schools, our CTE programs that we find are very important to a group of students, but it is a small number of students. So it's all over the board.
Okay, and again, I'd like to know the name of those classes.
Tagging in what Ms. Franklin said, though, are they required courses or are they electives, part of the elective?
Well, electives are required for graduation.
For graduation, okay.
All of our courses can fulfill a graduation requirement.
Okay.
But there's other electives that they could choose from if these were eliminated.
Of course.
So you got the action to get us a list of courses.
Right.
I don't know the legalities of this. I don't know if you can answer this or not, maybe. it might be a legal point, but the supplements, those are one-year contracts.
Correct.
So my question is there a possibility that if we're taking 10 or 20, whatever it was, 25%, can that be picked up by something like the boosters clubs?
We do have volunteer coaches that are supported in a variety of ways, but they're volunteer coaches. The supplemental, if the positions that we eliminate, those will be eliminated from Montgomery County funds.
I
We
know
won't be
that, but I'm
supporting them.
asking, is there another way that they can be supported financially, like such as booster clubs?
They would have to be volunteer coaches, and if there are outside organizations that choose to try to support them, that can happen, but they won't be.
But it's a possibility.
They won't be MCPS employees.
Okay, line 16, the VRS non-professional lower rate. If I'm remembering right, 2 years ago when we did that, it basically came back and we had to pick it up again later on. Is this the same shell game that I'm thinking of?
I'll give it to you. The rates are based on an actuarial chart that the VRS comes up with, and they've projected 5 years out. So what they've done is basically looked at what we're paying now and what the rate of return is on the monies that are in that account for the VRS for those employees. They then reconfigure that and give us a lower rate. It could go up but all the projections right now are projecting, one, is that our rate of return is higher than what we anticipated before, and two, that the rate was going to decrease anyway due to the rate of return that we've had up to this point. So the likelihood of it going up dramatically like it possibly has in the past is less likely.
What is the impact to the employee, bottom line? I mean,
no impact to the employee. This is invisible to the employees.
Okay, so this is just an accounting measure, more or less.
This is to make sure that Montgomery County Schools is putting enough into the retirement system for those employees to retire.
Okay, and they've come back and said we were putting too much in, is what it sounds like.
They're saying that this is an option for us.
Okay.
Based on the returns that we're looking at now.
Okay.
But in the past, when we did this, we ended up having to play catch up. Am I not mistaken with that?
I'd have to.
The rate that they just gave us in this biennium, the 10.79, which is what the original estimate was on the budget, is what the higher rate was. It went up 2.01%, which is approximately the $83,000. They're allowing us to stay at our current rate. So yes, it did go up 2.01%. Does that answer your question?
No, I'm just waiting to see in what year will this come back and bite us, that we're going to have to make up a difference because our account is now going to be short as far as our retirement.
Well, as Mr. Michaelandra mentioned, it's not, the projections aren't showing that they have in their actuarial evaluation that they do every biennium.
Mm-hmm. And then they shift monies around, and then all of a sudden pension plan is short and you've got to make it up locally. Okay.
Did you say the projections go out 5 years? Is that?
That's correct.
Is it a 5-year projection?
Yeah, they've given it to 2018.
2018.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've done that before.
Okay.
We can provide you with the actuarial report if you would like to see that.
No, as far as what they're going to do with monies, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, and as far as our math instructional folks who've spoken to us tonight, I had a concern about that before, and since that is an area we have been struggling with, and it is a key area that our children need to have that support, And it seems the support that these folks are giving to our classroom teachers who are asked to do more and more and more, I can't imagine cutting that. I mean, wouldn't agree to that before, and I'm not going to agree to that with this budget.
Are you referring to line 9?
Yes, I think I am. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the way I understood it, yes.
So could you guys give us an understanding of exactly what what line 9 actually entails exactly?
Yes, line 9 refers to math enhancements, but not the instructional coaches.
Okay.
The enhancements were the Reflex program, softwares to enhance
Okay.
math.
So it's materials,
calculators.
not employees.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
I was looking and hoping for a budget that would be less harmful for our students. And of the ones that we've worked on so far, this is the one that looks like it would be less harmful to students. Is it ideal? No. Does it hurt people? Yes, it does. Is it something that is satisfactory to all people? No, it's not. But under the circumstances, I know that there's some things that people dislike, but I don't know what you would put in place. But there's things I dislike. But I've gone over this thing over and over again, and I can't find anything that would replace the things that I dislike. And I think it's a matter of I had to negotiate with myself to deal with this, and it looks like the least harmful of all options.
Got some questions about the salary increases. In Ms. Blackburn's video, she talked about 1.5% increase to the people in the upper level, but nothing to level, I think she called it 0.0. What would be the cost to giving them, the people in that level, a 1% or 1.5? Do we have the information for that?
No, ma'am, I'd have to get that information. And that, the other part of that is it would start, we would have to redo the salary schedule as well. For those first 3 steps are at the 37,011. And to start adding to those, we would have to, because then we'd crunch the other ones above it. So and we could definitely look at that, but it's going to reconfigure it could reconfigure the whole salary scale.
And I know in this large document it tells us how much it's going to cost us approximately in the next coming years, but can you give us that roughly without me digging in that document right now?
Yes, ma'am. The figures that you're looking at there is based on this year's numbers as well. There'll be approximately 1.9, and with Ms. Blackburn's recommendation, 1.9 million, and then with the recommendation to add that at the top, you're looking at 2.1 million total. Now that's based on this year's numbers, meaning that that's also VRS numbers, FICA, those numbers. If those numbers increase, then that number would increase as well. The second factor, exactly, okay. Yes, ma'am. And the second factor is if you did anything with the salary schedules as they are, if you increased any part of the salary schedule, that also compounds the amount that we would have to increase the budget by.
Okay. Okay.
Just so I can wrap my head around everything that you just said, the one difference that I did notice was essentially in the presentation that we were given, option number 2 was $1.9 million roughly. And then, but what was proposed, or what is being proposed, is a 2.1. And so the extra $200,000 is at the top scale that was not included in that original. I just want to make sure I understand that clearly.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
So that additional monies that have been placed in there is to assist those people at the top, again, give them some kind of increase.
Okay.
just to reiterate what was said before, the only people that would not receive an increase are those people at step 0.
Okay.
Okay? That on the teacher scale. That's the only scale affected. That's the only scale that repeats a salary for the first 3 years. All other scales increase incrementally as the years go on. The teacher scale is the only one that repeats any type of salary at the beginning of the scale.
Are you the one that we need to commend, or your team to commend, for getting the health insurance reduction from 10% down to 2.9?
I would say it was a collaboration, yes, sir. No one person is involved in that. It's a work of a team, and we worked hard on working with our consultant and others. One thing that hasn't been selected is the company that's going to carry that. But the worst case scenario we were looking at is a 2.9 based on self-insurance as well.
Okay.
Joe, well, being modest.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's definitely great news.
Don't go away. I've got a question about the health insurance plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me bring it up here. Bear with me just a second. I thought I had the comparison here somewhere. Maybe not. Yeah, I read through it on the flight back across the country today, and here it is.
You must have gotten some sleep then.
Some. I truly got the 35,000 view look at. There are some differences between the two plans. I mean, they're not identical. She mentioned something about doctors and hospitals, but when you look at the plan, and I remember getting an email talking about the prescription, and let's see, here it is. Here it is. Under the prescription drug, it talks about that it says retail 31-day supply, copay is $10. And underneath that, it says $100 deductible on second and third tier medications. So if I go to the doctor and I get 2 medications or 3 medications, does that mean that I'm going to be paying $210? Help me understand what that $100 deductible on the second and third tier medication.
Yes, sir, and that's for both plans as well. It's not just the HMO.
But I'd still like to understand.
Yes, sir. What happens is that you have to meet that first $100 if you get a tier 2 or tier 3 drug. Most of those are your brand name drugs, if you will. The generic, you do not have to meet that deductible if you choose to get the generic. But if you choose that upper level tier 2 or tier 3 drug, and sometimes there isn't an option for folks.
So if the doctor prescribes and there's no generic available, then you're going to be paying $100 out of your pocket on that first visit for that.
For the first prescription, then you go to the copay.
The copay. Okay.
That was a measure approved by the school board a few years ago as a budget reduction. Okay, it wasn't new for this plan.
Yeah. Any further questions? We have a motion on the table. Mr. Ivers made a motion, and
well, we actually approved to have a meeting to further go over this budget. So to approve this or not approve this tonight, I think would be premature.
I'm sorry, a meeting to go over it in more detail?
Yeah, yes.
What more detail do we need?
On the 24th, I think that was.
Right.
So then what more detail do we need? Because we got to give the superintendent and staff direction on that detail, correct?
I think we spent about an hour or 2 going over that at the last board meeting.
Okay. Refresh my memory.
Well,
no. We spent about an hour or 2 going over that and giving that.
Well, you weren't here for that. If we accept the budget as it stands, it's my understanding that the meeting on the 24th would be a moot point. We wouldn't need it, and whether we voted on it or not, we wouldn't need it.
I personally don't need any more detail. And I'm ready to vote for the budget. I wouldn't vote on the first budget because it didn't include salary enhancements. And I said I thought that this was a year that after 4 or 5 years of no salary enhancements, and then we have received numerous letters where our teachers, because of the games that the state are playing with the VRS and other things, are bringing home less money today than they were several years ago. So we need to do something with regard to the salary enhancements. Our initial budget didn't have that. Now it does. And, you know, I'm with Joe. None of this is very good, but where are you going to scrub it?
I do think that if we are going to postpone that meeting or not have that meeting, we do have to vote on it because we did vote to have another meeting. I would assume that we need to scrub that. I know it's not been scheduled, but I would assume we would have to vote to not have that meeting at this point. Along those lines, I would like to just say a couple of things about that. I have a fundamental problem with us not being able to view the entire budget. We put our name, the 7 of us put our name to this budget. We approve it, we sign off on it, we send it to where it needs to go. To me, not having a document where we see the entire budget either says one of 3 things about us. That we're either lazy, we have something to hide, or that we're incompetent. I still agree that at some point, whether it's in the next 2 weeks before we have to give our final approval of this budget, that we should look at everything. I will say this, I am in support of what Ms. Blackburn has proposed to us tonight. I think it is reasonable, but for us to not be willing to look at the entire budget as a school board, I think is ridiculous. I think it shouldn't be that hard for us to see a document that's like that. Our financial summary that we just approved tonight and that we saw tonight has numbers associated with it. And I don't think that someone is pulling those numbers out of their rear end. I think those numbers are hard and they're somewhere and they're located somewhere. And I would like to just see those things broken down in a document that made sense for us to just review. So, with all that said, I am in support in general of the budget that we have, but I would like to see an entire laid out line by line budget, at least for us to review at our own time if we're not going to discuss it.
Mr. Lyons, I believe you just called 3 of us lazy, incompetent, and we have something to hide because 3 of us voted not to see that. And I consider that quite offensive. The superintendent, I think, does a really fine job in putting a budget together. And I think we have to have trust somewhere. Personally, I'm not lazy. I work very hard at this job. I don't think I'm incompetent. I think I know what I'm doing. And I don't think there's anything to hide at all. And the indication that there's something that's hidden in this budget really upsets me. And that's where I stand right now. I will not vote, if it's brought up again, I will not vote to attend a meeting that we have to go through line by line. I think this is a nice budget that's put before us. Let me rephrase that. It's the nicest one that's been put before us. It hurts the fewest number of people, and that's unfortunately where we're at this time.
To piggyback what Mr. Lyons said, I didn't, even though I voted to have the meeting,
I didn't take what you said to be directed at the board members that did not vote for that meeting. I took it as that's how the public could perceive it. And I've heard that this week from business people that own businesses in town that are like, that's one of the smartest things. That's what everybody in business has to do. When the going gets tough, you sit down and you look at things and find, just like with this new budget, which I like, and I'm okay with it. Speaking with Brenda on the phone, it helped me ask her some questions about different things that I've mentioned in the budget, and she explained to me, well, you know, in the public, and we hear it constantly about, well, you need to be, you know, out there, we need to see, and I mean, for me, I don't know how anybody can say that anyway, as much as we have on the webpage and the paper, but people do believe you need to be more transparent, you need to, that's where, when you go through that, you're making that effort. That's the way I see it, to say, okay, this, we're spending this much money in this area of the grouping, and this is why. One of my questions was with, there again, I mentioned that the last meeting, cell phone bills, iPad bills, and she explained to me what kind of kickback we got, what kind of percentage back we got. I didn't know that, and I've been on the board 8 years. So when I look at going down through the budget, it's not that I'm trying to prove somebody wrong, I'm trying to find anything hidden. It's helping me to explain. So when I have 25 people a week say, what about this person that's got that, or what about this person that's got that? Well, help me understand where this money goes. I can say, this is where that money goes. And let me help you understand why we spend that. Because I don't work in the system, and I do have a lot of trust, and I think I show that. But I didn't perceive your comments that way.
Well, and that's exactly what I intended to say with that. That's the perception that can be given off, and I've heard that exact same thing, and that's what I was saying with that.
I've often even said, I would like to see, we're always looking for retreat ideas. And for me, instead of, you know, some of the things we've done, which have always been great, this is something in a retreat I would like to see. Let's see everything that we spend our money on and how we can change that. We all do it in our homes, we all do it in our businesses, and that's how the school board has to consider the school system. It's a business.
Yeah. I do think the understanding for all of the board members on those items is exactly what we need to do.
It is a business, but it's a business that has hired some very professional people, superintendent, vice superintendent, head of HR, head of facilities, that understand what these mini programs are for, how they interact, how they improve student achievement, how they make a school system work. And my background is engineering. It's not education. I can understand some of this stuff, but I rely on their information to rely it to me. And so it is a business, and that's the leadership team that meets regularly to come up with these recommendations. And I did take offense. I'm definitely not lazy with this job, and I'm not whatever your two other words were. I mean, and I think you can ask my constituents, and they'd probably agree that I'm not those three things.
Now, I'll be very clear because I was the one who put this out here. I believe it's called due diligence, and budget is our job. And whoever we may hire to do whatever, for them to answer our questions related to the budget items, that's what they're there for. And that's why I still believe, with the situation that we are in and have been in for the last several years, it's time for us to take a deeper look as board members. And I'm going to stand by that, and I'm not going to back down on it.
And when we were talking, even though I support this budget with the teacher enhancements, let me say that right off the bat, I pulled up Montgomery County's income level. So one of the reasons that I tend to agree with this, the average income is $32,300. The average family income is $47,000. There's 94,000 people in Montgomery County. These figures is why I want to know more about what we're spending. This is what you're asking the taxpayers of Montgomery County, who have the average household income of $50,000 a year, to spend. And we don't want to look at what we can do when the bottom line stops here. That's my whole thing. Like I said, I like this budget, I'm okay with it. But somewhere down the line, I don't have a problem with looking a little deeper so I can understand what my decision making is.
Any other comments? Well, I think it's unfortunate that we would, whether it be by people around this dais or people in the public, would think that we have something to hide, or that we're incompetent, that we're lazy. And it's a very frustrating thing because of the amount of effort that each and every one of us around this dais puts into this job, that it would be characterized that. But then again, those people are not involved and they don't know. And they don't know the amount of time and effort and sacrifice that the 7 people around this table give up from time to time. You know, I'm going to approve the budget. There's part of me that agrees with Ms. Franklin and Mr. Lyons in the fact that at times, yes, there's probably a time and a place to dig a little deeper. I don't disagree with that. But my concern is that this board has a difficult time looking at 29 lines, and I can't imagine expanding it beyond anything more than that and having it benefit or generate any real good result.
I don't know if any of us even spend time to looking at the monthly bills that we approve. I don't know if any of you spend time to look through item by item where things going and try to figure out if you can even follow or understand. That's multiplies with many, many, many and becomes the budget. And it understand the details, to appreciate the details, it's really, really tough. And I don't know how many of you went through the 88 pages document. I have all the numbers. I looked at every budget item, where goes how many high schools, gets what numbers. I've been spending hours and hours. The thing is, our expertise cannot judge what those items are needed for. So we have to rely on the staffs and superintendents and financial officers, all that input to be able to say what is needed. We can dig. We can all dig and say and suggest what we need to question, and that they can come up with their answers. But I don't think sitting down and, you know, spending even one monthly bill, multiply that, 12 months, we can figure out, somebody has a travel check, somebody has an electricity bill, somebody has ordered 3 textbooks. I mean, you cannot judge whether they were needed or what is the part of the, whether it's an instructional supply budget, is it a textbook budget, is it an equipment budget? I have no way of, knowing those and judging those. So I don't see, any good in it to sit down and going through every single detail. See any reason for us to spend time on the however many line items there. But we can go back and look all the 143 items from the past, and then we can bring those back, and let's see if we can save on those. I don't know if you guys went through that list.
I'll give you another example. Just when I was speaking to Ms. Blackburn on the phone last night, I had made comment to my grandson that is in kindergarten, all the paper that comes home with copies, okay, and talking about the budget and the supplies. And I was expressing my concern on, is there not a workbook that students, that we can purchase? And she shared with me that a lot of times the workbook is higher than making copies. Well, that squashed that bug for me.
Well,
but
we can all bring those up on
that's
our
what
own
I'm saying.
time.
And we
Yep.
we have a hard time getting through 29 line items because none of us agree on what we want to cut and what we don't.
Right.
Everybody has a whole different way of looking at life.
So we.
But when you're looking at things, and I'm not saying you have to nitpick every single thing, My purpose of thinking it would be a neat thing is to learn more about our spending and how things are done. That's what the whole issue for me was. Like I said, the workbook situation. You're learning. And then, you know, when your constituents that vote you in and you run for election, which none of us have to do, we run for election because we choose to. And we're voted in to do a job. And, you know, the learning about the workbooks was neat for me to know. And I can relay that to a constituent that might ask me the same question.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning, and that's for sure.
I do go by line on what we spend every month because I have to make sure it doesn't say Cross Point or Foursquare Church. Just give that caveat.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the table, and we have a second to approve this budget that was presented to us tonight. And at this time, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to ask for roll call, please.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Motion carries. So Ms. Blackburn, she has a budget.
Thank you, sir.
This is our budget.
Along with the same topic, I make a motion that we cancel.
We can do that under old business.
Okay.
Okay. That would take us to the last and final item under the superintendent's report, and that's to, Ms. Blackburn has asked that the board members come up with some retreat dates.
Actually, it was me and the superintendent. Okay, that's okay.
Superintendent,
I should say. I don't know how you say that. It's too late for me. But yeah, we've been talking about retreat dates, and you know, tonight's discussion, I agree with Jamie. I think that trying to have more information on how our budget is prepared, maybe the process, more information is a good retreat topic. Okay, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, you're right, we've got 2 new board members, and it does help to refresh us on how they go about the process, and I don't think that would be too boring. I don't know what the right word to say on this.
Also, for the accreditation that happened in November, wasn't there an item on there that for board training that has to happen? Could that happen during the retreat time?
Yeah, that's some of the things we need to talk about. What we need to do usually is we need to set dates, and once we can all agree on dates, then we talk about topics. So historically, it's, you know, around the June time frame is when we usually try to have our retreat. Try to do it after school has ended. And then that's, of course, when vacation starts, so that kind of makes it a little bit difficult for people. But, and if we can't agree on a date tonight, then maybe we need to.
Well, actually, we've done board retreats all during the year.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came on the board, they typically were in February.
Oh, that's right. And, you know, one of the things we got to have a discussion again on capital at some point in time, folks. I mean, we approved a budget tonight that contains no capital in it. But it also doesn't address any of the card note, am I saying it correct? Card note tech reports?
Yes.
Okay. You know, and we have a lot of work to do on that. And so we need to have some discussion related to that. So, does people have dates that are available? And I guess...
Can I go back to the budget thing real quick for an item? If our next meeting is a budget work session to adopt the budget for the public hearing, and we just voted on this...
We're going to take care of that in old business.
That meeting that's April 24th? Okay. we don't have to make a motion to adopt the budget for the public hearing
And-
during this part?
We will.
You can do that under old business? Okay,
We'll
fine.
take care of
I thought-
that. We'll take care of it. It's just to adopt the budget.
Didn't know if it had to be phrased for the public hearing. Okay, back to those
We'll
dates.
we'll figure it out. We've done. So, board members, in June, we have the June 3rd and June 17th is the regular scheduled board meetings. Last year, we picked an evening, I believe it was. Did we not? We picked it was a afternoon, late afternoon, into the evening, couple hours type retreat. That seemed to work well.
So just a one-day thing?
I think that's ridiculous.
So what would you, Ms. Franklin, you want to do the day and a half type thing?
Yeah, for just the items that were mentioned tonight.
Right.
Take that.
I mean, that's a full agenda for sure.
Mhm.
We just did that last year because we have such a difficult time getting people to take time out of their,
So we're looking at Tuesdays?
no.
Okay.
Ms. Franklin's comment was that we
Make
that
a
we should
longer
consider going
time.
back to what we did in the past, which is we've done
Friday and Saturday?
the half a day on Friday and then a half a day on Saturday.
Well, the one before we did the evenings, if you remember, we started at 5 because that was one of the things I requested, so I wouldn't have to take off. Because I have to take off Saturdays and a half a day on Friday. I don't have paid days off, so that makes it tough for me. So all I ask is that we go toward the latter part instead of leaving it, the half a day from 2 to 7, maybe do, or 2 to 6, do more like 5 to 8. And then Saturday, I don't mind giving up, but it's hard for me to take off for Friday and a Saturday. Those are busy days for me.
Okay? So does anybody have any,
I'm pretty flexible all June, so I would.
so everybody's pretty flexible in June,
Yeah. Except for the 27th.
except for the 27th. What's the last day of school?
June 20th,
June 20th is the last day of school?
provided we don't have any more winter weather.
Hush.
Dr. Staten and I have already discussed the 5:30 email in the morning, and I'm expecting not to get, or I'm hoping not to get.
Yeah, really?
We have some graduation on some of the Saturdays in June, all right? We
Oh, yeah.
probably have to be careful on that
Yeah.
if you want to attend those.
Most of those dates are earlier than the 20th, aren't they? Yeah. Okay.
So maybe not 13, 14 weekend then.
And as I said before, this could happen at any time during the year. Doesn't have to wait until after school is out.
I mean, we can do it in August, but then that's when everybody's trying to get started. I mean, the superintendent, it's at the end of the school year, then you turn around, and then you go back into August. Of course, there's July, but July is usually,
How about September?
well, I mean, that's where it would end up, in September. Okay.
I don't even know why went there with that. I just made the statement that we could do this at any time, not necessarily when school is out. As I stated before, we used to do this in February.
Well, February's gone, so we're trying to catch up. I mean, I don't.
And you're saying, well, we could do it in August when everybody's going back to school, you know, so I don't know where that came from.
It was offering a suggestion. No one else is throwing out any dates.
How about the 20th and the 21st of June?
Nope, not available on the 20th.
What about May?
I think last year I was allowed to set up a doodle poll with several dates, and that people went in there and they put down what they were available. Can I do that again?
I remember we had some problems with that.
I'll help you do it.
It's not a matter of helping me do it. It's a matter of some of us didn't get it. We had some issues with it.
I'll make sure you get it. I can put every weekend for the next 4 months.
May's going to be tough, but
May's not
I guess first we have to decide on the month.
Well, I
Yeah.
could just do the next 4 months, and we can see what weekends or the majority of the people have available.
Yeah. I'm okay with it, no problem.
I'm just going to throw out July 25th just for kicks.
Weekends are tough for me in June.
Friday, July the 25th?
Friday evening to Saturday.
You're not going to be here that week.
Okay. About the 18th and 19th.
Can we,
I mean, historically.
legally, can we do this by a doodle?
Yes, last year we did.
Yeah.
Huh?
Last year we did.
Because that, I mean, we can sit down.
We consulted the attorney about the doodle poll, and it's okay.
We can do that?
Yes, we
The
can.
doodle? Well, instead of, why don't we just sit down, everybody put the doodle together, and it'll fall into place automatically if we do that.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. I was just throwing out a date.
You going to lead the effort again?
I will.
Thank you.
30 minutes ago, could have done
You're going to
that.
set it up?
I believe Miss Woolsey has volunteered to set that up. If you'll leave out the graduation weekend.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got that.
That's all good.
Unfinished business by school board members. Okay, the meetings, let's go back. That we have, if you go down to an upcoming school board meeting, I think part of the budget process was next week we had a budget workshop to adopt for the public hearing, and that was on the 24th, and then there's another proposed hearing. Now, I guess the question I have is that we've already had one public hearing. What is the purpose of this second one? We're only required to have one.
Part of the reason we decided to do that was so that way the communities that wanted to speak against something that was cut in the budget, because remember what happened on the pay-to-play thing, it was thrown out there and we voted on it and there it was. And that's why we decided to have a second hearing. But if we've just accepted a budget, then
Mr. King?
Yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, historically, you've always had a second one. The chairman's right that you're not required by law to have one, but I think for the dozen years I've been representing you, you've always had one once the county has returned its proposed budget, and these kinds of massages have been done to the budget.
The only massage we would do to this budget would be if the state just ends their gridlock, because the county's pretty much locked in.
No, and I think that you have obviated the need for that by your vote of 10 minutes ago.
Okay. So the public hearing, the meeting on the 24th, we don't need because we adopted the budget. But the public hearing on the 29th, we would go ahead and conduct.
You would conduct a public hearing on a budget that you've already approved.
Right.
Is that correct, Mr. King?
Well, I think normally you've done that in reverse. In other words, the superintendent has made recommendations about revisions based on what the county has done, and before voting on it, you've had a second public hearing, which is not required by law.
Right.
So the vote tonight, was it just to vote, I mean, to adopt the budget for public hearing? Is that what we did? Or
Yes.
Okay, so we have to do the
That was
public
not the
hearing.
motion.
It wasn't part of the motion, but we'll have to do another amendment to the motion. How do we-
But that's how the process has gone. So people are able to hear, to see, to speak to what we are proposing as a final budget.
If that's true, someone who voted on the majority on that vote will have to vote to amend the budget, amend the motion to say that the budget approval was for purposes of presenting it to the for a public hearing, and then you will need a subsequent vote to approve the budget. But that's not what the budget, that's not what the motion was.
Right, because on the 6th is when we have to approve the budget. So we vote to put it before the public on the 29th, that's what should be happening, or should have happened, and then on the 6th, we have to vote on the final budget.
Okay.
If you'll repeat that amendment, I will accept it.
and I'll second it.
All right, I think whomever is going to make the motion needs to say, I was on the prevailing side of the motion to approve the budget. That's a Robert's Rules requirement. And I offer an amendment to the motion, which would be that the approval of the recommendation by the superintendent is for purposes of a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the budget.
Thank you, and I think I just said that.
Second.
And then you need to vote on that.
Yeah.
And we'll do roll call on that.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Sorry, board members, for the confusion on that. Moving to any other unfinished business by school?
Now we move to cancel the meeting on April 24th.
Yes.
I second
work
it.
session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second?
I'm a little behind.
Okay. I was giving you a moment to catch up. Since that's a meeting, we'll roll call that real quick, please.
So now we can all go to the town of Blacksburg, right? Is that the day, the town of Blacksburg?
No.
Or
it's
No,
on the
that's
20th.
the public
29th?
hearing
Okay.
day, unfortunately, yeah.
Who made that motion?
I did.
Thank you.
Sarah made it. Joe seconded.
And Mr. Ivers seconded. Thank you. Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
No.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Any other unfinished business by school board members?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
there was another meeting.
Yes.
That was scheduled last week. There were two meetings, one scheduled for the 24th at 7 p.m., one that I don't believe the school board had agreed upon a date for.
Right.
Just as a point of
Yes.
clarification, there were two meetings discussed for that day.
Okay.
And I'd like to move that we not schedule that meeting, that we not have that meeting, however you
Yeah,
want to phrase
because
it.
I believe we did schedule that for that morning.
You voted to have it, but you never had a date.
We never had a date because
Yeah.
Mr. Jones
No.
wasn't here
I
to
didn't
decide.
give.
Oh, so
I
you
didn't
just
give-
never chimed back in? Okay.
It was
Uh,
going to be
No, I
either on the
didn't.
22nd or 24th, but we
Okay.
never decided on which day.
I did respond and tell you when I was available.
Okay.
Do you have a second?
I do not.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Just discussion on it. I can vote for that meeting to be canceled as long as that we definitely accept that as a retreat item.
And what at the retreat?
Discuss different budget type
Yeah.
things. I don't know.
Like, you're not specifying exactly?
I don't know what to specify, so.
Okay.
I'll specify that we need to see the entire budget in a paper form or in at least a electronic form.
I won't be modifying my motion to say that.
But that's this is a retreat. You're
Yeah.
confusing two things here.
What are we even talking about?
So you've got a motion and a
And a
second to
second.
cancel the meeting that was talked about last week.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you ready for the roll call?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Coran?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
No.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Any other items of unfinished business? Anything we need to cancel, postpone? Moving to new business. Any new business by school board members? Announcements and information. Any school board members have any announcements and information they'd like to share? Hearing none, and you see the upcoming school board meeting. We have canceled the one meeting there. Next.
Well, I'm sorry, one announcement. I went to the National School Board Association.
Oh, yeah.
And at some point, I'd like to report on that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, just remind me to do that. And you see the upcoming meetings. And with that, seek a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.